It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech. Nicholas De Leon is here from Consumer Reports. Jill Duffy from PC Mag. And Owen Thomas, formerly of Protocol. We'll talk about the demise of Protocol. Chaos in China. Chaos at home with Elon Musk's Twitter. Black Friday, kind of a bust. And a French court that says it's okay not to have fun. It's all coming up next on TWiT.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is TWiT, This Week in Tech. Episode 903, recorded Sunday, November 27th, 2022. Opt in for fun. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Collide. Collide is an endpoint security solution that uses the most powerful untapped resource in IT, end users. Visit collide.com/twit to learn more and activate a free 14-day trial today. No credit card required. And by 8 Sleep. For a limited time, 8 Sleep is offering TWiT listeners up to $400 off their Sleep Fit holiday bundle by visiting 8sleep.com/twit. After November 30th, go to 8sleep.com/twit and check out the pod and look for other exclusive holiday savings or save $150 at checkout with our normal offer. And by Audible. Audible lets you enjoy all of your audio entertainment in one app. Let Audible help you discover new ways to laugh, be inspired, or be entertained. New members can try it free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/twit or text TWiT to 500-500. And by OnLogic. OnLogic is helping innovators around the world solve their most complex technology challenges using OnLogic industrial computers, engineered for reliability, even in environments that would challenge or destroy traditional computer hardware. Learn more and find out about OnLogic's 30-day risk-free hardware trial by visiting onlogic.com/twit. It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech, the week's tech news digested, chewed, digested, and regurgitated by some of the best tech journalists in the business. That's disgusting. Nicholas De Leon is here from Consumer Reports. He's senior electronics reporter. Great to see you again, Nicholas.
Thank you, Leo.
Welcome. We also want to say hi to Owen Thomas. He used to work at Protocol. Actually, we'll get the scoop on what happened there, but always a good friend. His lower third used to say Alex's Twitter daddy. Is that correct?
Alex's Twitter dad, close enough.
Twitter dad.
Daddy has a different meaning.
It's a step too far. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's true. Alex Wilhelm owes it all to Owen Thomas. Let's not forget. And we're also reviving his moribund blog, which he hasn't posted to in 6 years, to therotty.com because, hey, we all need a blog these days.
Exclusive. You are hearing it here first.
Yes.
It is relaunching. It is
good.
Back.
Quick, post something. Also here from PC Mag, I am thrilled to say hello to Jill Duffy. She's also the author of The Everything Guide to Remote Work, which probably is still pretty au courant, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and I hope it stays that way for as long as possible.
You might want to look at that, Owen. Actually, Owen, you're in the Protocol offices right now. What is going on?
I am. This is like the opposite of remote work, right? No, it's a nice podcasting studio, among other things.
Yeah.
We're technically in what the Germans call das Abwickeln, or the winding down of Protocol. So the office is open for a few weeks longer.
What is there to wind down on a tech blog?
They're actually continuing the source code newsletter.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
For I think a few weeks longer, and I'm
really sad. I really liked Protocol, and every time we had you on, I would say, "What a great job you were doing! What great coverage!" I didn't realize this. You were still under the umbrella of Politico, which was sold to Axel Springer, the big German publisher, some time ago, and it was Springer's decision, I think, to cut Protocol. Would you say it is a comment on tech? Like maybe we're in a bad business Heaven forfend, covering tech?
I think it's much more a comment about media. I mean, there certainly is like a an incestuous merging of tech and media these days. But it's a tough business. I've been through a lot of publications that are sadly no longer with us.
Yeah.
RIPsuck.com, Red Herring, Business 2.0. I mean, maybe it's me.
Maybe it's you, Owen.
Maybe I'm the problem.
By the way, all of those were great. I loved suck.com. What a wonderful attitude and take, and a great place, great writing. Tony Perkins' Red Herring was fantastic. I loved Tony, and I loved Red Herring. I mean, it's kind of, you worked for the best, except for Gawker. I'm not going to include Gawker, but you've worked for everyone else has been great. It's a tough road to hoe. We're even struggling, I think, as a tech-focused podcast. I'm really close to murdering somebody and having a mystery show because there's joking. It's okay, John. John's going to disappear and people are going to think I did it. What happened to Jammer B? It could be a good podcast. Jill, you're still, PC Magazine's still around, but kind of a shadow of its former glory days, I guess.
It just had its 40th anniversary, actually. So there was a lot of interesting, fun stuff we did this year, such as a second big interview with Bill Gates, which I believe was in the inaugural issue back in the early 80s.
Under Bill Macron, probably, or even before Bill Macron. 40 years. Wow. That's kind of amazing. I worked for Ziff Davis, so I was part of the family for a long time. Yeah.
This year, PC Mag has its first female editor-in-chief, and that is Wendy Sheenan-Donnell, who has been with the publication for a long time. She started out managing and editing, covering consumer electronics, and kind of worked her way up. And she's really taken the helm with great leadership, and I'm really grateful to work with her.
Yeah, that's good news. I see your article here on the top tech and tools you need for taking digital notes. It's funny, we had Phil Libin on last week who founded Evernote.
Oh, yeah, I know Phil.
Yeah, Phil's great. And it was, I was trying to get him to say bad things about Evernote and Bending Spoons, their new owner, but I couldn't get him to. So,
I got to say, since he left, I have not been super happy with Evernote's direction. I jumped ship a couple of years ago on that. I just couldn't keep up with that tool anymore.
I think we all did. But Phil is one of those diplomatic guys who's going to be careful. He even almost had something nice to say about Elon Musk. Almost. And Consumer Reports. How old is Consumer Reports, Nicholas? It's,
I think, 93 or something like that.
It's older than my mom. Yeah.
It's an old publication, still around. The magazine is still around. It still does well.
I still get it.
The website.
Yep.
I mean, most of my stuff is on the website, of course. But I'm happy to be here. I'm proud to be here, and long may it continue, I guess. Although with media, everyone,
we're just
maybe I'll be
lucky.
A firefighter.
Yeah, we all feel lucky just to have a day job.
It's a tricky business, like Owen was saying, and I'm actually interested too. Is it a tech thing? Are people just over tech? I feel like since 2016, it's been just like an onslaught of nonstop, like big tech. Tech is evil, yada yada, and maybe people are just over it.
Maybe they're done.
I don't know.
Yeah. Consumer Reports made a little bit of headline last week for the first time disrecommending the Tesla. I remember in the early days of the Tesla, it was the highest rated car. And I know you're not involved in the car testing, so
I have zero insight,
input,
to be honest.
But they said it's the highest rated car we've ever tested. They give it 100 points. Now here we are some years later, and they've actually it was Ford, not Tesla. It was Ford they delisted their electric vehicles. I noticed this because I drive one because of unreliability. But even the Tesla, even all the electric vehicles do not score very highly on the reliability.
I just bought a brand new 2022 Toyota RAV4 gas engine. The electrics seem interesting, but I feel like I'm not quite there yet to buy one.
There yet. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Maybe we're going back to gas engines. Maybe gas is back.
No idea.
No, I hope not. So let's talk, I guess, about Twitter. There's really only one news story at this point, which is that Musk said on Friday that they're going to restore. He had a poll. It's so weird that Elon Musk, who tried to get out of the Twitter deal by saying, "Oh, the bots, you can't. Nobody's real on Twitter," and now having polls which are clearly botted, heavily botted. The poll, 72%, I think, voted yes. Twitter should reinstate accounts banned for harassment, misinformation, hate. As long as it's not illegal, he said, we're bringing them back. Is next week going to be a nightmare on the health site? Owen, do you still spend time on the Twitter?
I tend to be more of a broadcaster than a consumer.
Yeah, me too. When I use Twitter,
I tend to put messages out there. I try to keep up with any responses, but like these days especially, I'm just not going back and forth a lot with it, and I find that's kind of a healthy like relationship with Twitter. I think it is an unwinding of all of the work that Twitter, Twitter under Jack Dorsey did on prioritizing health, and I think the real impact you're going to see is that advertisers who had already paused a lot of their business with Twitter are going to just walk away because it's not a must buy. It is a relatively small audience online. It doesn't move the needle for like a big, consumer brand these days. And that's going to be a real problem for Elon because, it doesn't seem like Blue Verified is, burning up the charts either in terms of bringing in revenue.
I note that Jill's Twitter handle is now Jill, I didn't pay for the check mark Duffy. You still have it, by the way. I didn't pay for mine either. We still have them, but I guess at some point they'll expire.
Yeah. And that's fine with me. I don't really care. I'm taking a hiatus from Twitter. Last week was just the moment where I said, this is not what I can do right now. This is not where I can spend my time. Yeah. This is not where I feel good about spending my time and sending out my message. So for those of you on Mastodon, I'm on the big server at Jilly Duffy at mastodon.social. And I'll build up there a little bit. We'll see how it goes.
I just followed you on our Mastodon instance.
Thank you.
Twit.social. Yeah, that's great. And
I'm happy to see some new ideas coming up about social media. I think Twitter really did have a place. Maybe it will continue to have a place. I'm not sure. But I think that what Mastodon is really doing is getting people to think about, well, what would something that's similar to Twitter but different be like?
I agree.
And anybody who's coming to Mastodon thinking that it is a Twitter alternative, that it's just a recreation of Twitter on a different place, they're totally wrong. You have to go into Mastodon thinking that this is something new, and you should really be open to experiencing it in a new way. So the way that you interact with people, the way that posts don't get bumped up into your line of sight based on how popular they are, the way that people are hosted on different servers, that it's not just one big place controlled by one person. Like this is a great experiment in a way for people to try out something new, see if they like it, continue critiquing what they don't like about social media, and get more experience with it.
Yeah, maybe it could be a different thing entirely. Kinder, gentler, no ads, no algorithm conversation is an interesting idea. But Nicholas, you said you're done with social entirely.
I kind of think so. About 6 months ago, I really kind of stopped caring about social media and stopped using it. Not just Twitter, but Instagram.
I think you're not alone. I think a lot of people feel that way. Burnout.
I mean, I've always used Twitter, frankly, as like a silly, soccer jokes and video game GIFs. I've, since going back to 2008, so I've never really treated it as like critical to my life. So for me to step back and just like not use it as much is frankly not that big of a deal. But yeah, I wonder if just seeing the news coverage of this and seeing how people get really, maybe in some cases kind of justifiably upset about the changes made. It's like, do we really want a website to have that much control over our lives? Yeah. I don't know.
Not just lives, our mental state, our
for sure.
How we think about the world, and especially one that's designed to spin up outrage and upset. I stopped using Facebook because I always felt bad afterwards. That was years ago. Twitter,
like I often think, as I'm, on my deathbed or whatever, not to be too weird, but like, am I really going to say like, well, I wish I spent more time refreshing my timeline on Twitter? Probably not. I don't think I'm going to be saying that. I think I'm going to be saying, oh, I wish I spent more time with my friends and family. So like, I just feel like the balance on a lot of these platforms has gotten way out of whack. And I personally am just trying to like bring it back a little bit. And I've had, frankly, great success. Over the summer, I really tried to start jogging, and I've gotten pretty decent at it. I've gotten into pretty decent shape, and just like the number of hours that you just like spend just scrolling through
doom scrolling these
apps.
days.
It's I don't know, and I'm not trying to be glib or anything, but like I hope folks kind of use this kind of like Twitter moment as an opportunity to kind of like reflect and be like, is this how I want to spend my life? Just like really getting amped up about this site. I don't know.
I feel like
Twitter has had its time, though. I got to say, if we think back to the Arab Spring, for instance, or even Occupy Wall Street, Twitter really became the way that people organized and that they were allowed to talk to one another, find out what was going on. Even as recently as some of the riots in Hong Kong a couple of years ago, a lot of that was just grassroots organized through Twitter. So I think we should keep in mind that there is a population of people who are using it for doom scrolling. I think it's really become a replacement for RSS in a lot of ways, in the sense of getting your news, right? So instead of getting an RSS feed of headlines that you're interested in reading, people started using Twitter instead and following journalists. And that was kind of an interesting use case, in the same way that organizing social movements has become an interesting use case. And so, I think the doom scrolling and getting sucked into it and feeling bad about yourself, that certainly is a problem for a lot of people. But it's not the only way to use this tool. And again, like if we think about the ways that we are experimenting with social media, like there's a lot to be learned, whether people decide to stay with Twitter or not. There's a lot to be learned from it going forward about what kinds of tools do we need if people are going to collectively organize against a government or an institution of some kind,
It's interesting that you say that, because it's going on right now in China. I think that to some degree, that's opportunistic. People have done the same with WhatsApp or Telegram. Twitter was there, so they used it, but there are other ways to do it. It's interesting because about 3 weeks ago, Apple changed iOS 16 to change the way AirDrop works. You can't turn on accept AirDrops from anyone for longer than 10 minutes. It turns itself off. And in the US, I guess you could say, well, that's a security measure. But it was widely used in China for organizers because it was one of the few ways you could communicate with anybody in your vicinity. You had to be within, I guess, 100 feet of each other. But you could communicate with anybody in your vicinity without identifying yourself or them. It was a fairly anonymous way. And I'm told it was widely used in China for organizing. China is now undergoing the most severe civil unrest it's had in years without that. And we can't point a finger at Apple and say, well, you see, Apple was asked by the Chinese. I mean, you'd have to presume Apple was asked a few weeks ago by the Chinese government to turn that feature off preemptively. They're no longer able to use it, but I think you find other ways too.
I think Twitter is one example, but some of the things that you just said, airdropping information, using WhatsApp, finding other encrypted messaging apps. These are all ways that we're still trying them out. We're still figuring out what works. I just think when we look back at Twitter and its value, we should remember those things and remember how they worked, when, why, and not just say, oh, it was just doom scrolling all the time and, looking at Trump's tweets and Elon Musk's tweets.
Yeah, and we're very U.S. centric. I mean, Twitter is most of the users, or 80% of the users, are outside the U.S. I've read. I don't know if that's true. I think Elon said that. And many of them are in Japan. It's very popular in Japan.
Do you all remember when the White House actually called Twitter and asked them not to shut it down for like scheduled maintenance because there were protests, I think, in Iran at the time.
Oh, interesting.
And they were worried that it would, interfere with the ability to communicate. I think I agree with what Jill's saying. I think people are mourning that Twitter, or the many Twitters. Everyone kind of had their
Black
own
Twitter.
experience.
A lot of people who didn't have a voice used Twitter to create community, to get a voice. We're mourning it.
Yeah, and I think those people are feeling that, like, with the dramatic loosening of policies and the deprioritization of health, that, like, Twitter's just no longer a home for them. And it's hard to move homes. It's certainly Mastodon and Telegram and, everything else is out there, but you just
Tumblr.
Those
a lot of people going to
like
Tumblr.
home.
Matt Mullingweg said 18% increase in Tumblr signups this week.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a throwback.
But yeah, I know I'm not going to go to Tumblr or Mastodon to organize the next revolution. I don't think it's going to happen there. It's not that kind of a place. Twitter felt so much more public. I do also, like you, Nicholas, got news from Twitter.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a big loss. It was almost a wire service in a way.
I mean, it definitely replaced RSS for a lot of my colleagues and friends in media. We all used to use Google Reader. I used to use NetNewsWire on Mac back in the day. And it's like Twitter replaced all of that, for better or worse. And so it will be interesting to see, the other thing I'm thinking is that maybe, with, these communities that are, maybe it's time for a new thing. Maybe Twitter had its time in the sun. Okay, great. Let's try something else. It's like the idea that Twitter was it, the final boss. Like that is as good as it's ever going to get on the internet is very weird to me.
That's not
like the idea. It should be constantly getting better and improvement and like cooler or more interesting or more. But just the idea that Twitter that's it, no more. That never sat well with me.
It's interesting.
I feel
Someone in
like
the chat room is saying you're talking as if it's dead. It's not dead.
I do feel like people are performatively quitting Twitter. Like an example is Phil Schiller, the longtime Apple marketing executive. You got to remember, so Phil Schiller deleted his Twitter account, but this is also the guy who deleted his Instagram account when they launched on Android years ago. So, like, you've got to remember that some people have their own agendas for, like, using this moment to say, well, I am done with Twitter.
Well, and I note that Tim Cook posted recently on Twitter. Apple is, Tim Cook sent Thanksgiving greetings on Thursday on Twitter. I think some people are saying, I'm going to stay on Twitter because I want to preserve it. I want to make sure that there are other voices on Twitter. One of the things, Elon really seems to be taking it rightward. And it would be a shame if he turned it into another, Gab or Truth Social, a right-wing network. He seems to want to do that. I'm not sure I understand what the motivation is, but it's certainly not dying, right?
No, but I will say anecdotally, when I log on in the morning, and this is I've never had Twitter on my phone for several years. That to me is a bad idea. I only use it on a desktop when I'm working during the day. But when I log on in the morning, especially the past week or so, I'm definitely seeing fewer humans that I know on the timeline. It is more just kind of like brands like Pepsi or CNN or whatever.
A lot of broadcasting.
I don't know.
A lot of broadcasting on Twitter now. Yeah.
That was very interesting to me. I noticed that a couple days ago. I was like, what is happening? I don't know. Who knows?
I think part of this preemptive death sentence is that people were worried when a bunch of engineers got laid off and a bunch of people quit that there wouldn't be the staff around to support the tool anymore, and that little by little cracks would show, things would break, and the site would go down. So, and I saw a little bit of that personally. There was a day when somebody who had protected tweets was retweeted by somebody, and that retweet became visible to all, no longer protected.
Oh.
So it's that level of stuff that may break, right? And little by little, if enough of it breaks, the site could theoretically go down. I don't think it will just one day, not be available on the URL anymore. I think what we're going to see is these cracks showing. And certainly a lot of that is going to come from content moderation. Those divisions all got completely obliterated from the various layoffs and quitting and protest. So there's a lot that those of us who don't work at Twitter don't know it was going on behind the scenes. We don't know the extent to which people were studying the kinds of language that was being used, what sort of harm was being done, how to prevent that harm. And so that's, again, where we may start to see things very slowly devolve and break rather than the site disappearing altogether. It
was Phil Libben's opinion last week. By the way, I got a lot of email in both saying you should never have Phil on again. He's obviously, in Elon's, corner. And then people saying it was really great to hear a different take, a refreshing take. I like Phil and I trust him and I think he's very honest. And I think he said, you shouldn't count it out. It may well be what Elon is up to is getting, and I think there's some evidence for this, getting rid of all the people who didn't like him, weren't 100% in believers in Twitter, stripping it down to the metal and then building it back up. It was a brutal way to do it, but it could be said that was what he was doing. And maybe, it certainly didn't go offline. On Friday, I thought if it's going to go down, it'll go down during England, U.S. in the World Cup. Yeah. Sure didn't. It handled it fine. Elon posted that, in fact, Twitter's doing better than ever and has signed up more. It's more active than ever before. He says,
well, active doesn't bring in any money, though.
Right. I mean, but Elon still has plenty of money, even with he says new user signups are at an all-time high, which is, I think, interesting. He posted a Twitter slide talk that he gave to the company showing, we're recruiting new user signups at an all-time high, 2 million a day, new users. Active minutes also at an all-time high, although that doesn't say anything. Some of that could just be people coming to watch the Flames. The MDAOs passed 250,000 monthly daily. I'm sorry, what is M? Daily active users. M.
It's monetizable.
Monetizable. That's right.
In other words, not bots.
Yeah. Hate speech impressions are lower. Okay, certainly lower than they were when he took over. Let's put it that way. Reported impersonations spiked. Yeah, we know why, and then fell. Twitter 2.0, and this is his plan for Twitter going forward. Advertising is entertainment. I do remember one story that he was talking to some people and said, we should do more native advertising on Twitter. You should make ads look like tweets. To which somebody responded, that's what we're already doing. I don't know what he means by advertising as entertainment. Maybe in this case, the picture he's showing is from HBO. Are you a Targaryen, Valerian, or Hightower? Take this, like this tweet, and I'll analyze your profile. This is straight out of the Facebook playbook, and absolutely something I don't want to see on Twitter. Video as part of Twitter. Well, Twitter already has video. It's been rumored he wanted to bring back Vine, which Twitter bought and killed with mismanagement. Encrypted DMs,
which they were working on.
He says he's working with Moxie Marlinspike, formerly CEO of Signal, and there is some people have seen code saying the word Signal, so maybe that's going to happen. Long form tweets. So he fired the guy who cheerled the 280 character tweet internet Twitter. He's gone. But maybe they're going to do something even longer. Relaunch Blue Verified, at which point Jill and I and you guys will all lose your blue checks, I guess, which is fine with me. Payments. It's interesting. That slide has nothing.
Yes, that blank space shows you how little Elon has thought about this. Yeah. In one of my last pieces for Protocol, I actually wrote about how Elon Musk's plan for Twitter and payments basically looks like PayPal in 1999.
Which he was one of the early founders of, right? His company, right. X.com, was sold to Twitter, and he's one of the Twitter PayPal Mafia.
Yeah. He merged X.com into Confinity, which then became PayPal. But the problem is, Leo, that his playbook has not evolved in 2 decades, and payments has moved on, and e-commerce has changed enormously. Twitter has never been a good spot for e-commerce. They have tried payments. They've tried, shopping inside a tweet. And the problem is people are there for conversation. They're not there to buy things generally.
Nicholas, you're obviously a football fan, by which I mean soccer. Was it a good place? Elon says, follow the World Cup on Twitter for best real-time coverage. Was it?
I mean, I think television is better.
You can actually watch the game. Yeah.
On 4K. Fox is producing it in 4K this year. It looks awesome.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
But I will say, I remember 2009 being on like a TechCrunch, an early TechCrunch podcast. We were recording the podcast during the Champions League, and I think Barcelona scored a goal, and I was like, hooray, etc. And I was saying, wow, Twitter is perfect for this. I'm talking to you guys on the air, and I'm tweeting as we're speaking, and I'm seeing all the people saying, hooray, Messi scored, this is great. So Twitter has always been like a very good sports thing. So I definitely agree with Elon there. That is one of the things I've used Twitter for since 2008 is like sports commentary, sports rumors, trade stuff, live, kind of like a live water cooler or whatever. So it's actually awesome for that. And it has held up during the World. I was actually kind of semi-expecting it to kind of buckle under the pressure of the World Cup, the volume of tweets maybe bringing the site down or bringing back the fail whale or whatever. I haven't seen that.
No.
And I've been on the site and I've been watching more or less every second of the World Cup and on my desk here. So it's like, it seems to be okay. I don't know that it's the best place for live coverage. I think television is a little better, but I see his point. It is a nice additive to the experience, and it makes it. I used to, back in the day, I used to watch a lot of WWF Pro Wrestling, and I remember I was in an IRC chat room with some friends during the show on Monday nights, and okay, maybe that was like 10 people. So this is the same thing now with millions of people, and it's kind of fun to kind of join and hooray, Spain scored, Germany scored, and go back and forth. So I don't entirely disagree with him there, I guess.
I used to, anytime, it was not just sports, any live event, like Oscars or whatever, I would open up, I would have my laptop in front of me while I'm watching the live broadcast, because it was always fun to kibitz with other people. That is a social activity, and Twitter was very good at that. Some people in our chat room are saying, well, you could do the same in Mastodon. I don't know. This is a world, if I pin a column with World Cup as the hashtag, I guess I can follow. It's not quite the hooray place, is it?
I'm not familiar with. I know Mastodon exists. I haven't started one. I'm probably not going to start, but I do. My brother is 10 years younger than me. He's 26.
What does he do? What do the youngs do? That's what I want.
I was going to say he's on Discord basically all day.
Yeah.
And to me, Discord feels like that.
I agree.
Almost like that recreation of like the IRC or the Usenet chat groups back in the day, where it's like, okay, we have a small little community that are all into pick your topic, and they're all friendly. And
there's got to be a hashtag Manchester United Discord that all the Man U guys are in there and going.
Or there might be multiple ones for
for sure. Yeah.
Boston supporters or folks in Miami or whatever. Yeah. And it feels like maybe Twitter, it's so big, our brains can't wrap around like having that many people in connecting to, and maybe a smaller Discord with like 20 folks or whatever. Maybe that's more manageable.
The Dunbar number,
something to that effect. But my brother is on Discord frequently, and I know I've seen smaller podcasters who are in fact kind of migrating their communities away from Twitter and putting Discord access behind a Patreon paywall and saying, hey guys, we're going to hang out here, we're going to talk about the same stuff, but this feels like a little bit more curated, a little more personal, and we'll see how it goes. But I do see Discord as being kind of like a place where the kids are, they're already there. So,
gee, what a great idea! We should do that. Oh, we did. Yeah, that was an eye opener for us. We started Club Twit about a year ago. Just as you said, it was behind a paywall, $7 a month. Mostly, we thought the benefit will be ad-free versions of the shows, no ads, no track. Right? You just get to listen to the content. And it turned out the Discord, which we threw in as a sweetener, turned out to be the best place. It's a great social network. There's I think there's 3,000, 4,000 people in there now. And it's just, which is maybe a little too big, to be honest. But what we did is we created a lot of sub-channels. So, you can hang out in, I hang out in the coding channel. In fact, Advent of Code is coming up, so we're getting ready for that. But there's, beer and I wonder if there's a football. Geeks are not big. Yeah, there's a sport ball.
Of course.
Geeks are not probably the biggest sport ball people, but we got.
But to me, that's interesting because you have an audience of technology enthusiasts, folks who are into this stuff, regardless of what's happening in the industry. The people who listen to your shows like this stuff.
Yeah, they want to hang out.
So there's already a commonality there.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe we all like Android, we all like the iPhone or whatever. But also maybe we'll talk about the Oscars because we're all friends anyway about this grander thing. But I want to watch the Super Bowl.
That's a good point.
Friends,
That's a very good point. Yes, so it starts with the podcast and tech. But it's not limited to that. That's a very good point. We need it.
Whereas with Twitter, it's like it's everyone. It's everyone discussing everything simultaneously, which can be a little bit intimidating. A little bit. Well, I don't want to hang out with those folks because they're jerks, and a lot of them are jerks on Twitter. So it's like, all right, well, maybe the smaller community, and we can just hang out there. So
I think you're bringing up a really interesting point, though, about communities. So I think these smaller places that are a little more protected, a little more private, maybe behind a paywall, are good for cultivating small communities if people have similar interest. When we start to think about news and culture and education, I think that's a point where we also need a place that isn't an insular community, where we should be exposed to news that we aren't individually seeking out, or articles and reading that are not just in, the group of people that we follow are going to tweet about them or push them out or whatever. I've been doing some mentoring this year with some younger writers who are just starting out in their careers. And something that I never really put words to before, but I've realized in talking to them is the value of a very broad general magazine. So when you get a magazine, content is coming to you that you have no idea what it is, whether it's weekly, monthly, whatever. But it's this opportunity to explore ideas that you wouldn't necessarily go and seek out yourself, or that people in your small insular community aren't going to share with you. So I think they're and they shouldn't necessarily be thought of as the same thing, right? These insular small communities and this idea of expanding yourself, reaching out, getting new ideas, new information, exposing yourself to that. And I think a lot of what has gone wrong on places like Facebook and Twitter, and even to some extent YouTube, is that those two things started to at times kind of intertwine in really ugly ways, where people were sharing articles and, information that wasn't factual, and people were fighting about it, or people had different ideas and opinions about what the facts were, right? And so I think it's just so interesting to think about the ways that social media could feed those two different parts of our needs and our desires for both community and information beyond our own walls.
Get out of the filter bubble.
To some extent, yeah. I mean, but even more than that, sort of being open to ideas that are just nothing you would have ever thought of before.
Yeah.
The unknown unknowns, as it were.
Mastodon, which, we've been doing a Mastodon server for 3 years. My lower third has had my Mastodon handle forever. Is nice because it's international. So it's much more aggressively international, and so that's kind of. And I shouldn't really call it Mastodon. I should call it the Fediverse, because it's not just Mastodon. There are lots of other ways people can talk to one another across barriers using activity streams. Mastodon is just one way to do it, and I think that is one of the things that Mastodon can bring to the table. Not to flog Mastodon, because honestly, I think it's maybe groaning under the weight of all these new Twitter people. But I just think that I guess my point really is that there are other ways. Discord, Mastodon. There are lots of other ways that we can communicate. And maybe this is just an opportunity for us to find it. It's sad that Facebook has chosen at this time to turn Instagram into TikTok and really destroy its personal. It's so much more algorithmic now than it used to be. Do you guys still use Instagram at all? Anybody? Do you, Owen? Do you Insta?
I look at it. And I don't share so much on it. But I do. I have a lot of friends kind of spread out around the world. And that's where people post pictures of their kids in Halloween costumes.
Right.
And that's what I'm there for.
Right. But less and less it's that, more and more it's reels.
Yeah, I probably post more on my dog's Instagram account than my own.
Sure.
But that's as you should. Lisa
I mean,
posts
she's
a lot
pretty
of
cute.
cats. This is our newest kitty. No, it's not. Oh my God. Yeah, I feel like Instagram maybe has kind of fumbled what it could have been as a refuge.
I thought
for
it was
people.
fascinating that Instagram has been promoting the idea of alt accounts. Facebook for a long time was like, you must have one real identity
Finstas.
on the web. But now they're kind of embracing this idea that you'll have, a second account that you use to kind of lurk and scroll, and another account that you actually post with.
I guess that's really the bigger question is social's clearly changing, right? What social means, whether people want to use it. Nicholas, you're done with social. I bet you're not alone. I think there are a lot of people, especially in your age group. You're not really young. You're not old like me.
That's a great point. No, I'm in between. I remember pre-internet. I feel like I've seen so many websites, and I've been a member of so many message boards that have died over the years. I'm just like, all right, well, here's another one that's going to die. Oh, well. So
it's just part of the way of the world.
it's part of the circle of life, kind of.
With Facebook suffering, and Mark saying, well, I guess we're going to get out of social and head to the metaverse. I wonder, maybe we're seeing a complete transformation of how we use the internet. The internet's young. We don't know what the internet, is going to be like. It's still a young technology, and it's still getting molded by its users, and every generation that comes along uses it differently. That's why TikTok took off. That's a different generation than the Facebook generation. All right, we're going to take a little break, come back and talk about anything other than Elon Musk, if you'll let us. It's great to have Jill Duffy here, PC Mag, the book, Everything Guide. There it is, the Everything Guide. Everything you need to know to remote work. Is hybrid's not remote, right? I mean, hybrids.
It's included. One of the things I say early on in the book is that remote work is not one thing. There are so many different ways that we experience remote work. So sometimes it's an entire team being remote. Sometimes it's one person being remote in a different time zone. Sometimes it's a hybrid situation of people coming in 1 or 2 days a week. There's no one right way to do it, but there are lots of tools and guidance and best practices that make all of remote work better.
And when Elon says everybody has to come in, I feel like that's very backward. That is not a modern way of thinking about things. And I will
say, especially in the accessibility sense, I think he had to specifically kind of throw in a disclaimer at the end that said, well, yeah, unless, of course, it falls under ADA compliance in some way. If you can do your job from home better, more efficiently, healthier, with the tools that you need, why on earth do you need to be in that office?
Is there evidence that people do as well or better working remotely?
Yeah. There's lots of mixed studies. Like I said, remote work is not one thing. It depends not just on the configuration of who's remote and how and when, but also the actual work that you're doing. So a number of years ago, before the pandemic, and I'm going to bookmark that and come back to that idea in a second, that remote work under the pandemic. But before the pandemic, there was this great study done, I believe it was in China, with essentially like travel agents. And about half of the team was randomly selected to work at home. And if they didn't want to, they could opt out of it. But they sent 50% of the people home, and they worked for about 7 months and collected data on the number of calls that they answered, the number of travel reservations that they made, et cetera. And they found that the people who worked from home, they weren't burned out from a commute, so they started work on time. They weren't worried about rushing to get home for kids or other obligations, elder care, so they worked until the end of the day. They were at their leisure to take breaks when they needed, which helped them be more productive throughout the day. And so the productivity of the team that was working remotely was much, much higher. So I want to come back to this idea about remote work during the pandemic, because the most important thing that happened then that people often neglect to mention is that people weren't opting in. People were being sent home and told, you must work remotely. It's not your choice. It's not my choice as the employer either. Everybody's got to go home. So that created a situation where people weren't choosing to do it, and organizations weren't set up to support them. So when we look at what happened during the pandemic, we had really mixed results. Some people hated it. Some people were less productive. Some people were more productive. But it depended a lot on whether you wanted to be there, what the other conditions were in your home at that time. If you had kids at home, if you had other people in your house that wouldn't normally be there, and whether your organization was ready to support you and give you the tools that you need, and really the corporate environment to support people being remote and sort of trusting them to do their jobs effectively.
Well, we've had that experience with our small company. And I think at this point, we've kind of decided, do what you want. Some people come in, some people don't. There's some people have to, engineers have to. But a lot of our hosts still do shows from home. And it's worked out fine. I think there's some fear among management, not here, but in other companies that, oh my God, these people aren't going to be. Elon feels like he really thinks you're not going to be working if you're at home. I want you to send me a snapshot of your codes commits every week to make sure you're working. He even said, managers, make sure that everybody we're paying is a real person, that there's no fake people on your payroll. I think he's kind of got a little screw loose around that people aren't working thing. Was most of protocol in office, Owen, or was it some of it work at home?
We were, I like to say protocol was distributed rather than hybrid or remote. We had offices like this one in San Francisco, New York, and Roslyn, Virginia, right outside DC. We had a lot of people in places like Philadelphia, Portland, North Carolina, Chicago, where we didn't have physical offices. So we tried to come up with some benefits, for example, like a stipend you could use for commuting expenses if you were going into an office, or just, any remote work expenses if you weren't.
I'm one of those people who actually likes to come in. All through COVID, I came in. But very, and then I guess, John, you had to come in because we had to have somebody in studio. And we observed COVID protocols to kind of keep people safe. Nobody got it. Until we had to nobody got it until it was over, and we all went out into the real world and got sick immediately. But it worked out pretty well. And then a lot of our staff doesn't want to come in. I would feel lonely. I like to come in and see people. Nicholas, do you go in, or I can't remember?
I guess hybrid would be the word. My department was made remote. Pre-pandemic, I used to have, I guess, like a little cubicle in the Yonkers office. All those offices were requisitioned, and they're kind of just like roving offices. And so I go in maybe once a month, twice a month. I basically work from my home office every day. I prefer it. My first job at TechCrunch was work from home. I learned to work from home, basically.
It sounds a lot better than a little cubicle in Yonkers, I'll be honest.
It was actually the office itself was probably the nicest office. Yonkers is not exactly Midtown Manhattan, to be fair. But I've worked in Midtown, and I didn't have as nice of an office. So it's kind of, give or take there.
All I know about Yonkers is that's where Hello Dolly was. That's all I know about it.
It's a fine place. There's
what borough is Yonkers in?
It's in Westchester County.
Westchester,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's pretty far out of town.
It's like 30 minutes by car north of New York City. Okay. So it's more, it's the New York City area, but it's not literally in the boundaries of New York City.
I just see you in this little cubicle in Yonkers, just head down, typing.
I mean, and that was, hey, I'm fine with that. That's my happy place, sitting at a little desk, writing about like the iPhone or whatever. I'm more than happy to do that forever, basically.
Yeah. When I started doing the radio show 19 years ago in 2004, I did it from my house. And what I found was I'd go in my slippers, right? And I just didn't have the energy. It was like, yeah, it's time to do a radio show. Like, it didn't feel like work. So I actually rented a place down in this downtown that I would go to, a little like Garrett, but just the fact of having somewhere that I would get up, get dressed, and go to. So I guess I'm the person that needs an office. I think Lisa's that way too. My wife and our CEO, she likes to come in, and she likes to have the people she's working with there so she can, communicate with them in real time instead of over Slack. It's funny. Everybody has a little different.
I definitely had friends, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, who were having a pretty hard time with not going into an office and not seeing. They get that energy, and so they needed that. Me, I was like, I'm fine either way, frankly. But I definitely know folks who are in the same boat, Leo, who are like, I need to be in an office. I need to see humans, otherwise I can't do this thing that you're asking me to do.
Can you? I mean, well, just for me, the idea of staying at home all the time seems like horrible. That was the bad thing about the pandemic, just being locked inside all the time. Hey, I want to take a break, come back with more with a great panel. So fun to have all three of you. Our show today brought to you by Collide. This is actually timely because a lot of people are working in hybrid situations. A lot of IT departments are going crazy with endpoint security these days. And, it kind of brought home a truth about endpoint security. When everybody was in the office, you could do things like, crazy glue the USB port and really lock everything down. But as soon as people went home, if they didn't like, the user agents you were putting on their machine, if they didn't like how locked down their system was, if they were worried about, the company spying on them, what do? They've got their home computer. They've got their own phone. And it pretty soon became clear that the old way of doing endpoint security wasn't going to work. That's why Collide has come along to tap the most powerful untapped resource in IT, end users. When you're trying to achieve security goals, whether you've got a third-party audit coming up or your own compliance standards, the normal wisdom, the conventional wisdom, treat every device like Fort Knox. But the problem is old school device management tools like MDMs force disruptive agents onto employees' devices. They slow performance. They treat privacy as an afterthought. Employees know this. That way of doing things turns IT admins and end users into enemies, opponents. And then what's next? It creates its own problems because users turn to shadow IT to do their jobs. They start using their own stuff. And that's worse, right? That's far worse. Collide does things differently. Instead of forcing changes on users, Collide sends them security recommendations via Slack. So it works everywhere, whether your employees at home, at work, whether you're using Mac, Windows, Linux, it's completely cross-platform. Collide automatically notifies any team member when the devices are insecure. If there's something wrong, it gives them step-by-step instructions on how to solve the problem. It all begins with that first DM from Collide saying, here, let's install the Collide agent on your system. When you're reaching out to employees via a friendly Slack DM, educating them about company policies, and enlisting them as your partners in security, you're building a culture in which everyone contributes because everyone understands what's going on, why you're doing it. You'll love it as an IT admin because Collide provides a single dashboard that lets you monitor the security of your entire fleet, running Mac, Windows, or Linux. You can see at a glance everything, like which employees have their disks encrypted or are up to date on their OS patches or are using a password manager, which makes it all easy to prove compliance to your auditors, your customers, your leadership. And it makes it easy to fix anything that comes along because Collide helps them do it. So they're your partners now. Collide, user-centered, cross-platform, endpoint security for teams that Slack. You can meet your compliance goals by putting users first. Visit collide.com/twit to find out how. KOLIDE.com/twit. If you follow that link, they're going to hook you up with a goodie bag. I have my Collide t-shirt. I really love it. You get the stickers. You get a beer coaster, a variety of Collide goodies. And that's just for activating a free trial. No credit card required. Collide, KOLIDE.com/twit. I just love the idea of making your users part of the team, not your opponents. Collide. Thank you, Collide, for your support. We appreciate it. Thank you for supporting us by using those addresses. Make sure you use those, collide.com/twit, so that they know you're here. So I mentioned kind of tangentially, there's something going on in China. Protests, significant protests, due to a number of causes, COVID lockdowns, zero COVID policy. I don't know, I imagine the Xi regime has the will and the ability to crush the dissent, I'm sad to say. it seems like it's a kind of childish to say this, but it's also going to affect iPhones. Among other things, 30% production loss because of mass quitting at Foxconn. Foxconn, this is just part of the overall unrest. I'm very curious to see how this is going to impact China. But among other things, at least in the tech sphere, Foxconn was losing workers. They promised a $1,400 bonus for workers coming to Foxconn and then neglected to pay it due to the failure to pay and growing fears about COVID-19. It is said that more than 20,000 new hires have left. And according to 9 to 5 Mac, an internal estimate reportedly says that more than 30% of production for iPhone 14 could be lost. It's already behind due to COVID. All of this is happening at iPhone City in Zhengzhou, China, the big Foxconn plant. Just one of many ways unrest in China is going to be disruptive globally.
You know, it's interesting, the quiet quitting that you hear about in the States, and I know there's controversy of that term, but it really had its roots in the lie flat movement in China. And lie flat is basically what it sounds like. You know, you stop working, you just lie flat on the floor. And that really came from, this kind of crazy culture of overwork in China's tech sector, where, people were expected to work like 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Elon Musk would have loved it. But tech workers revolted against those conditions. And I think you're seeing that kind of now move down to factory workers who have historically not been kind of apt to, engage in these kind of mass protests.
This is a big story, just as a global news story. Here last night, Sunday night in Beijing, demonstrators holding up blank white pieces of paper. This is from the BBC. The pieces of paper are symbolic of censorship. Censorship. People are saying President Xi should step down. Since Tiananmen Square, this has not happened in China. This is somewhat shocking. So it's of course, look at this. It's kind of amazing to think of it in a country where you really assume rigid control of the populace, that people would take their chances. But you see this in Iran too. You see people. There's a point at which people say enough. So we'll watch that. It's more than just iPhone 14 production, but still, that's one impact that we're going to feel in the U.S. I guess probably in manufacturing in many ways.
I studied China in college, and throughout history, the Chinese government is always thought of as having the mandate of heaven. A legitimacy that's kind of handed down, and even the modern Chinese Communist Party in some ways is legitimate because it's legitimate. That tautological mandate of heaven, I think, applies even in the modern day. And so that's why it is so interesting to watch. And it's possible that this could really spiral, because once you lose it, it's gone, and so much of the Chinese regime really relies on kind of compliance. And it, you can lose it quickly.
I'm rooting for him, for the people. Yep.
And as much as these stories are kind of taking the news now, and last month a little bit with this relationship with Apple and how is it going to hurt, international business, the lockdowns have been really strict and severe, particularly in a few of the major cities, going back to like July and August, where I follow a lot of news out of China, and there were reporters who were just giving their day-to-day accounts of being locked in an apartment building in Beijing week after week after week, and having to kind of like trade with your neighbors to get the right foods that you need because you couldn't get access to food. So if you think about like the stress people have been under for the last 4 months of going through this, in a strict and severe way, not just not just the standard everyday protocols with COVID lockdown, but the more strict COVID lockdown measures that have been going on as cases have been rising. People are at a real breaking point.
Does Apple get any heat for shutting off AirDrop right before these protests broke out? We don't know if the Chinese government told Apple to do this, but they did it kind of unilaterally. They seem to cover it up by saying, well, we're going to do this globally as well eventually. It sure feels like this was Apple once again acting at the behest of the Chinese government. That's got to hurt their reputation if people start to think that, right? What do you think, Nicholas?
Oh, this is so outside of my wheelhouse.
That's why I'm asking you. I want to push you, man.
I wonder how many like average consumers really think about what Apple's policies in China are, like at least consumers in the United States. I would wager they probably out of sight, out of mind type of thing. So I don't know. All of us as journalists and are aware of this. It doesn't look right, but also, I didn't like when the tech companies kind of bent to the will of the NSA during all that stuff, during the Snowden stuff either. And I still use those products, so I don't really know.
Maybe I'm being a troublemaker, but I really think that the public should know about this and that Apple should be held responsible for this. They tout, that they are, this privacy-loving, freedom-loving company, and Tim Cook, says that, but they have very close relationships with China. So November 9th, Apple released an updated version of iOS 16.1.1. You might have seen it globally. All they said was this update includes bug fixes and security updates as recommended for all users. But, and this is from Quartz, hidden in the update was a change that only applies to Apple iPhones sold in mainland China. AirDrop can only be set to receive messages globally from everyone for 10 minutes and then turns itself off. There's no longer a way to keep the everyone setting on permanently in the Chinese phones. And you're right, Nicholas, probably nobody understands that that's a big deal in China until you know that AirDrop has been used as a communication tool in Hong Kong for protesters. It's been used to communicate with other protesters, to reach passersby, to spread messages to tourists from mainland China visiting Hong Kong. We had stories some months ago when mainland Chinese people arrived in Hong Kong. They would just miraculously get on their phone a pamphlet explaining what's going on, the news that these people in mainland China never heard because it was censored. On the mainland, according to Quartz, protesters have also airdropped protest literature, particularly on college campuses, which is, by the way, where some of these protests are breaking out now. China's control of the internet is so strong that dissidents have to use any tool they can to get around the Great Firewall. Now, Apple, when asked about this, according to Bloomberg, didn't respond to questions. They said, we're going to make this feature global next year. But, they did it without announcement in China just 3 weeks ago.
I seem to remember AirDrop also being like a vector for abuse. If you just accept everything from everyone, you could be on the subway and people are just sending you photos you don't necessarily want to see. So I always turn that off personally. I always recommend it to friends, like, you should just turn that off. I don't really see the point in having everyone having the ability to just send you stuff. Obviously, the context in China is different. But yeah.
Yeah, no, in fact, I agree with you. I would recommend turn it off. You don't want everyone. But if you're a protester in China,
sure,
there's a value to it. So Apple gets a little cover because they can say, well, this is the right way. This is the way we should do it anyway. Everybody's going to do this globally soon. So they get a little cover that way.
Just to make it explicit, I feel like what the Quartz article is kind of suggesting, and Leo, what you're sort of suggesting is, did the Chinese government ask Apple to make this fix explicitly, and did Apple comply and do it quietly without explaining in its notes, right? And we don't know. But that is certainly a conclusion that one might speculate.
And Apple has cooperated with the Chinese government in other ways, with VPNs.
Yeah.
They've dropped apps. And remember, that you can't display the Taiwan flag on iPhones. The emoji for the Taiwanese flag is not available to iPhones made in China, which Apple obviously did.
It's all kind of pointing at the fact that the relationship of a major world power and a government that is pretty oppressive has a strong relationship with the world's richest company, and perhaps the most important company, at least in the Western world. And that relationship is a little bit worrisome. Like the phrase "too big to fail" kind of comes back to mind, right? If either one of these parties, reneges on this contract that they essentially have with one another for Apple to get its inexpensive labor to make parts for its products, right? And keep feeding the purchaser, the people purchasing these products, to keep growing the company. Like, that relationship is kind of worrisome. Like, it's so big and so important to both parties and really internationally that you almost need to make sure that it doesn't fall apart. And that if it is dismantled, it is dismantled very slowly and with care. And I want to say about a month ago, there was a lot of pressure on Apple to find new partners to start making some of its phone products or pieces of the phone product from other countries so that it wouldn't be relying explicitly on China, because there were already so many factory shutdowns.
Apple makes iPhones in India. They've already started that. Brazil, I think. They want to make them in Vietnam. But that's for a number of reasons. It's partly because they want to diversify, but also Brazil and India both have very high tariffs against products not made in country. So it's also just an economy. You can't sell an iPhone in Brazil or India at a reasonable price unless you make it there.
But you've got to start to wonder, too, what does China think of the business starting to trickle out elsewhere, right?
Good point, yeah. This is a year ago. The New York Times did an investigative report, Censorship, Surveillance, and Profits, a hard bargain for Apple in China. Apple built the world's most valuable business on top of China. Now it has to answer to the Chinese government. And we're seeing that. We're seeing it. We saw it a year ago, and then we're seeing it again. Tim Cook went to China. He met with Xi and others. He probably made commitments in order, and that's the business of Apple. They got to make these iPhones. They make them in China. It's the cheapest, best place they can make it. They've actually, built up the Chinese industrial economy considerably by building so many iPhones there. So, Nicholas, you're right. I think most people aren't aware of it. I want to bring it up because does Apple have a responsibility? And what is its responsibility? I mean, they have a responsibility to their shareholders to make the most money possible. If you want to, the Chinese business is huge for them and growing. If you want to do that business, make that money in China, you're going to have to follow the laws of China.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds almost too literal. But like, if you want to do business with China, you kind of I don't really fault companies for, following the law of their local, whatever country. So I don't know. I struggle with this because it's like if China wants to be, if Apple wants to be in China, China has rules. If Apple doesn't want to be in China, they're free to leave. But it certainly feels like they're not
there's no
going
middle ground,
to.
Is there? Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't, what do I want Tim Cook to do? I don't know. I'm just a guy in the Hudson Valley. What do I know? It's like, but it's like
I'm just in a cubicle in Yonkers here, folks.
I'm just typing. But no, I hear it, and it's interesting. It's like we want companies to do better. We would like companies to stand up for like human rights.
Yeah, Google walked away from China, but Google didn't depend on China in the way Apple does, right? A Times analysis, this is from that article, May of last year. A Times analysis found that tens of thousands of apps have disappeared from Apple's Chinese App Store over the past several years, more than previously known, including foreign news outlets. Quartz, by the way, was one of them. Gay dating services, encrypted messaging apps. It also blocked tools for organizing pro-democracy protests and skirting internet restrictions, as well as apps about the Dalai Lama. So, I don't know. Owen, what do you think? What is Apple's responsibility here?
Well, I think, Apple obviously wants to operate in China, and it's really hard for the the iPhone business model to work unless you have that tight link of the App Store, the apps, and the hardware. And to do that, they have to go along with local governments. I mean, we do expect tech companies to obey local laws. That is a reality.
And complicating this is the fact that the U.S. government is now starting to cut off China to some degree. Apple's going contrary to U.S. policy in some respects. So is this a balancing act that they're trying to keep two superpowers happy so they can continue to sell products in both?
I mean, it would be fascinating to see, an American administration, any American administration, go as far as saying, like, "Hey, Apple, you can't make iPhones in China, or sell them."
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like the kind of brewing Cold War has gotten to that point. The Biden administration has taken a really surgical approach to this, and I credit my soon-to-be ex-colleague Max Cherney at Protocol for doing really in-depth reporting on this. They've been going after very specific chip manufacturing technology, especially technology that helps China build like the most sophisticated chips for artificial intelligence
and decryption of our encryption, which is one of the fears of the U.S. government, is they're going to be able to decrypt our communications.
And, but the thing is, again, I would stress the word surgical. Like, they've been doing things that are kind of like aimed at cutting China off at the knees, but without initiating some kind of like global trade war or really doing anything that consumers in the U.S. or China would even notice.
Yeah. There is an issue specifically with a company called YMTC, which is a small Chinese chip maker. The Chinese government funded, and Apple uses, but not in its American iPhones, only in its Chinese iPhones. There is a pressure on Gino Raimondo, the Commerce Secretary, to add YMTC to the entity list, that surgical list of Chinese chip manufacturers that are not allowed to buy American technology or components. But Apple is saying, you better don't do it. Apple's saying, don't worry, we only use YMTC chips in iPhones sold in China. But if it's put on the entities list, then Apple would have a problem. They actually couldn't use those chips anymore. So somehow they lobbied. I don't know. The Commerce Department put export restrictions on YMTC, but they did not put them on the entity list. This is the balancing act. And I actually have a lot of respect for Tim Cook, because he's doing diplomacy, like real hardcore diplomacy, balancing the U.S. government's interests, Chinese interests, and still trying to sell iPhones to both. Marco Rubio said, if Tim Cook understands the risks that YMTC and the rest of the Chinese Communist Party's chip-making efforts pose to U.S. national security and that of our allies, then he and his company should clearly commit to not proceed. But they haven't yet. It's an interesting situation. This is increasingly the problem with big tech, isn't it? That they're global and they have to operate in a global environment. Elon's going to face this in spades. He's fired most of the EU, the people in charge of responding to EU privacy issues and laws. I don't know what's going to happen at Twitter there. It's tough. I think it's important for people before we buy iPhones to understand the deal with the devil that Apple has done, and to be okay with that or not okay with that and respond. But consumers don't do that, do they, Nicholas? They don't care.
In my experience, I don't know. I feel like a lot of consumers have bigger problems in their lives than worry about Chinese government policy for this.
I just want to be able to message grandma, and she's got an iPhone.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a blue bubble, so there.
And I get that. People have jobs, they got kids, they work a million hours a week. They just want their iPhone to send a funny little emoji without necessarily thinking too hard about like the chips that are in it.
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic to that attitude, actually.
It's not, I don't know, though. I mean, one of the few tools that we as consumers have to influence all this stuff is our dollar, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, now you know the rest of the story. All right, I'm going to take a little break, talk about other tech stories in just a bit. But first, I want to talk about what a good night's sleep I got. You don't care. You should care because you deserve a good night's sleep. And our sponsor, 8 Sleep, is going to get it for you. This holiday season, give the never-ending gift of deeper sleep. Consistent good sleep is a life changer. Nature's gentle nurse, we call it. It can reduce the likelihood of serious health issues, decrease the risk of heart disease, lower blood pressure, even reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. But most Americans suffer with poor sleep. And the number one problem with sleep, I think, for a lot of us is getting hot in the middle of the night. It's the worst. And, you'd think, well, that's only a problem in the summer. And it is, but it's also a problem in the winter because it's so cold you leave the heat on, and then you wake up in the middle of the night, you're sweltering. Well, I'll tell you something. I don't leave the heat on anymore because I've got the 8 Sleep pod cover. We got it more than a year ago now, and I can't. I mean, honestly, when I travel and I stay in a hotel that doesn't have an 8 Sleep, I'm going, I don't know if I could take this. I don't know. Let me explain what the 8 Sleep is. They make mattresses, but we have the 8 Sleep pod. It's a tech layer that goes over your mattress. It's like a fitted sheet, a mattress cover. But it does so much more. The pod dynamically cools or heats each side of the bed, so you can each have different settings to maintain the optimal sleeping temperature for what your body needs. And it changes over the night. So it can go as cool as 55 degrees. That's basically air conditioning for your bed. Oh, man, when it was hot over the summer, I just loved that. Or as hot as 110 degrees. Sometimes I need that heat for my sore muscles I get in bed. But here's the best thing. It adjusts. It adjusts according to how you're sleeping, how you're moving, the temperature of the room. It has an automated system to give you the perfect temperature. See, it turns out that, you might want to get in bed and it's nice and cozy and warm, but ideally, as you go deeper and deeper in your sleep cycle, you want it to get cooler, and that will put you in a deeper sleep. And it really works. Clinical data shows that 8 Sleep users experience up to 34% more deep sleep. I know I do. It makes a huge difference. Now, the nice thing is each of you gets your own settings. So Lisa has completely different settings. She likes it really hot. She turned it up to 10 all the way up last night, and I'm just thinking, God, I don't know how you could take it. I'm more of a 4 or 5 guy, but then it goes down to 2. In the summertime, it was actually -1, cooling me off. It's so great. You just feel so good. With that great deep sleep, your mind and body just feel like they're there for you. It's vital for physical recovery, hormone regulation, mental clarity. It is the single best thing you can do for your sleep, if you ask me. And by the way, I save money on my heating because I don't use my heating during the night. I don't have to heat the house. It keeps me warm, and it's a lot less expensive, a lot lighter on the budget to warm just the bed than it is to warm the whole house. It's not a holiday miracle, but I know it might sound like one. But if better sleep is on your wish list, you know what? You can give yourself a gift this holiday season. Look no farther than the new Pod 3. Cover more sensors to do an even better job. And right now, what a great deal. For a limited time, 8 Sleep is offering TWiT listeners up to $400 off their Sleep Fit holiday bundle. Exclusive holiday savings that includes the pod cover that we have and we use and we love. In fact, we're upgrading now to the Pod 3. We have the Pod 2. Go to 8sleep.com/TWiT, and you're going to get up to $400 off the Sleep Fit holiday bundle. 8 Sleep currently ships within the U.S., Canada, the U.K., select countries in the EU. And you know what? I know Australia, you're getting warmer. While we're getting cooler, you can get it in Australia too. So if it's you got a hot summer coming, you're going to be so glad you have it. 8sleep.com/TWiT. 8sleep.com/twit. Spell it out, EIGHT, 8sleep.com/twit. Now, this deal ends November 30th, so don't wait. If you're listening after Wednesday, the same URL, 8sleep.com/twit, and you can check out the pod cover. There will be other holiday savings, I'm sure, or you could save $150 at checkout with the usual offer at 8sleep.com/twit. I cannot recommend it more highly. Kevin Rose told me about it. In fact, Amy Webb was on the Twit show we were talking about it. She ended up getting it. She said, you got to get this thing. I finally did about a year ago. We love it. And like I said, it makes it hard to sleep anywhere else. I'm hooked. 8sleep.com/twit. Thank you, 8sleep, for your support of our show. And thank you, dear listeners, for supporting our show by visiting 8sleep.com/twit. You do that, a URL that you know. There's another way you could support the show. I might mention, by the way, we have this great club. I was just talking about this with Nicholas. Club Twit, $7 a month. It's $1 less than getting a blue check on Twitter. That's a good deal. You get a lot more too. You get all shows ad-free. Plus, you get shows we don't put out to the public. Hands on Macintosh with Micah Sargent. Hands on Windows with Paul Thurrott. The Untitled Linux Show with Jonathan Bennett. The Giz Fizz. You get a lot of bonus content stuff before and after shows. And then, of course, the access to the Discord. That is really the social network for anybody who listens to Twitch shows. It's fantastic. Plus, your subscription supports Mastodon. It supports our Mastodon instance at twit.social. It supports our forums at twit.community. It supports everything we do. It keeps people hired. And as we're heading into the holiday season, things are looking a little bleak for 2023. We are not alone. The tech industry, advertising is really slowing down. Your contribution makes a big difference. It keeps the lights on. Please, twit.tv/clubtwit. I know you. If you can't afford it, that's fine. We had somebody send us an email saying, I'm on a fixed income. I only have $1,000 a month. I said, please don't join Club Twit. I sent him a complimentary subscription. He says, no, you don't have to do that. I'm going to do it anyway. I said, all right. If you can't afford it, I understand. But if you can, it really makes a difference. twit.tv/clubtwit. Hey, some good news in the robocall world. The FCC is finally getting some teeth. Nicholas, you must get people talking to you all the time about how do I get rid of the robocalls and the spam texts and all that stuff.
Yeah, I get that all the time. I personally get those calls all the time. I don't really have advice for folks. It's like this stinks, doesn't it? I don't really know what to tell them. So I'm glad that hopefully there are some steps being taken to eliminate, because it's gotten to the point where it's like, I know like millennials, people don't pick up their phones anymore because they expect it to be about like their phony car warranty or some other scam. And so it's like, well, if I can't call someone because they're afraid to pick up the phone, because then phones become, what's the point of having a phone anymore? This is a very American problem. We just let scams get out of control so much that phones don't work anymore.
Well, and it's frustrating because the FCC can regulate this. There's this protocol called Stir and Shaken, which is basically an authentication protocol that lets your phone company, whoever your cell phone company is, authenticate that the call is coming from an actual subscriber to that actual company. That's their real number, not a spoofed number. And the FCC's been really dragging their feet enforcing this. So that's why this is good news. The commission required that any U.S.-based carrier with IP networks, which is all of them, by the way, use Stir and Shaken, and they had to implement it by June 2021. But at the same time, because the FCC is the best commission money can buy, they created something called the Robocall Mitigation Database, which actually should be called It's Okay to Spam People database, because if you're in the Robocall Mitigation Database, then T-Mobile and AT&T and Verizon and US Cellular and all the cell phone companies can say, yeah, go ahead, do those robocalls. So this database, which is basically a get-out-of-jail-free card, finally, the FCC is they've took years to do this, going to start blocking companies. They told providers that if, as of September of last year, if the company is not in this database, block them. You have to, legally, you have to block them. But they didn't take anybody out of the database. In October last month, they said they warned a company called Global UC and 6 other companies, we're going to take you out of the database. You're going to lose your get out of jail free card if you don't comply with the anti-robocall technologies. For the first time in living memory, the FCC has actually done something. They have blocked Global UC. Now, I don't know how many robocalls come from this one company, but they're no longer in the database. It's unknown, according to Engadget, whether anybody else will be blocked, whether there's any other penalty. The FCC says we're still reviewing responses from the firms that we've warned. Nor do we know yet if this is going to reduce the volume of robocalls. Just anecdotally, it doesn't seem to have done much. You're still getting them. I just feel like the FCC needs to kind of step up and do what they said they were going to do. June of next year is the drop dead date for any company outside the U.S. that doesn't have that has facilities, that has buildings. Maybe June of next year, robocalls will be a thing of the past. I doubt it. At least they're making an attempt. Let's see, what else here? New York State has banned for 2 years proof of work mining. The new governor, the newly elected governor, has signed the law because crypto mining using proof of work is incredibly energy intensive. They have made that illegal, which just means they'll move over to New Jersey. But, everything's legal in Jersey, as they said in Hamilton. Anything to say about that? Are we happy? Are we celebrating? It's only a 2-year moratorium, which is kind of weird.
To me, it's just interesting because I feel like the proof of works, feels like that's fizzled away, especially like GPU mining. Yeah. Certainly for individual people, but even for like these firms, is that even a thing anymore?
Well, it's less valuable now that Bitcoin is at its low for the last 2 years. Apparently, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. A lot of Bitcoin miners have selling their used GPUs.
Oh, yeah. It's a great time to buy a graphics card. They're so cheap.
I'm not sure you'd want to heavily used.
Well, true, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you would. It's worth a try if it's cheap.
I mean, the funny thing is, these miners were very reluctant to sell Bitcoin when it was peak because they were hodling, right? They were holding on for dear life. They kept betting that the price would go up. And so they would borrow money to buy Bitcoin mining equipment. They'd borrow fiat.
Right.
And so they've been just kind of like triply hit by rising interest rates, dropping price of Bitcoin and
the collapse of FTX.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've been talking about that a lot in Sam Bankman-Fried and the crazy stories coming out of there. I can't wait to see the soap opera. But I have to think this has hurt crypto in general and NFTs in general. Consumers must have this kind of pervasive feeling that it's all a scam and I'm going to stay away from it. I hope so. We can but hope. Judy, Ms. Duffy, are you?
I'll do Judy.
Jilly, are you a big crypto supporter? Doesn't seem like you might be, but
Judy
Duffy.
No, I am not a big crypto supporter. No. So my partner works in like international politics and has a background in that kind of stuff. And from the beginning, he's been a bug in my ear saying, not only is it a scam, but it's going to defraud people. It's going to hurt.
When did he start saying that? That's good. He was right. He was ahead of the game.
2015, 16.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. All along. People who know history sort of were really alert to the fact that this whole money scheme was not gonna go anywhere. And I think in the international scene, what we've seen happen in El Salvador with the Bukele regime and people being literally murdered in the streets after the value of crypto dropped. Presumably because the government was paying off the gangs, and then the value of the payment that the gangs received dropped incredibly suddenly. So they had to make a big statement, and somewhere above 50 people were murdered one night in the street, just shot in the street.
I didn't hear about that. This was in South Africa?
Of course not. No, El Salvador.
Oh, El Salvador. Oh, yeah, that's the guy who's buying a Bitcoin a day. Yeah, still.
Yeah, the very young leader of El Salvador, Bukele. So, these are the small struggling countries that we don't hear enough about what's going on in their economies. Those are the people who get really hurt. We can talk about the people in the United States who put their money into Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, lost it, no longer have any value to cash out, no longer have any equity. But the real people who are being hurt are like actual physical human bodies, human beings in other countries.
So sad.
It's really messed up because, we have to remember, like, money needs to be stable. That's part of what money does when it has value to a society, is it needs to be stable. And when it's not, really bad things happen. And we can look at all kinds of examples throughout the world where, a physical currency was not stabilized.
The collapse of the Deutschmark in the Weimar Republic led to the rise of Hitler.
So much insecurity for people. And I'm not an economist. This is not something I specialize in. It's something I have a little tertiary knowledge about, but it's really frightening. And, I think in the United States, the discussion was so much about, are you being scammed or are you going to make $1 million? And the conversation really needs to be a lot broader than that.
Yeah. I did not know about the 62 murders in the gang warfare in El Salvador. That was in March.
Yeah.
Wow, horrific.
The sad thing, and just to pick up on some points Jill is making very, very eloquently, is that there is actually potential for crypto to serve a purpose in, say, international remittances. I'd say for a lot of purposes like day-to-day payments, buying a pizza, buying a coffee, crypto is not particularly useful in any, developed economy. But remittances are still really expensive. They take a big chunk out of, out of the budgets of some of the least well-off households in the U.S. and around the world, this erosion of trust is absolutely correct. You should not trust people who have behaved this way, but it would be kind of sad if that potential to pull out costs from a really costly system, were to be lost in all of this.
I don't know if Bukele was a con man from day one. I understand why, he wanted to, withdraw from the world banking system that he felt like was, conspiring against El Salvador. He moved the El Salvador currency from the U.S. dollar to Bitcoin about a year ago. Unfortunately, he did it right before Bitcoin crashed. So a lot of people in El Salvador lost a lot of money. It's dropped 61% since September. And Bukele spent hundreds of millions of dollars on Bitcoin and still says to this day he's going to buy a Bitcoin every day. They put in Bitcoin ATMs in every town plaza. They told businesses you must accept Bitcoin as payment. He bought $100 million worth of Bitcoin at its absolute peak, which means it's only worth about $30 million now. This is probably, but do you think it was, I think maybe he just was as much a victim as anybody.
I think you might read a little bit more about his past.
Oh, really? No, okay.
not the stand-up guy you might assume.
Okay. Oh, well.
Yeah, I mean, he's been called the authoritarian hipster, and
just
deservedly.
It's a perfect combination, isn't it?
But like El Salvador did did have kind of a legitimate sovereign interest in de-dollarization.
Right.
They had their own currency. It fell apart, as many of these small country currencies do, and they went on the dollar, which has a lot of downsides, but it at least offers
stable.
Yeah, it offers some stability, which in the face of runaway hyperinflation, has some appeal. But for me, El Salvador embracing Bitcoin was as much about de-dollarization as it was about Bitcoin. It was just they didn't have their own currency to use, and Bitcoin was kind of fun and trendy.
Yeah. Very sad. Not going well in El Salvador, and I guess not going well in crypto in general. Miami club owners told the Financial Times business is slumping as the crypto industry takes a blow. It's hurting even Miami clubs. I guess that's where a lot of the Bitcoin bros went to celebrate. Many clubs, this is from Business Insider and the Financial Times, many clubs had grown used to serving a new demographic, 95% men, young, with a kind of nerdy style. They were all crypto bros. Out of the blue, all these kids from crypto started coming down and spending a lot of money, like an insane amount of money, said Andrea Vermacati, director of food and beverage at Mach-E Hotel Group. He said high-rolling crypto regulars have completely disappeared. Oh. Live by the Bitcoin, die by the Bitcoin, I guess.
Leo, you'll love this. There's a restaurant in Salesforce Park in San Francisco that has a membership tier. You have to buy an NFT to join it.
Is this the one at the top of Yerba Buena Center that they put in?
It's Salesforce Park.
Okay.
No, a couple blocks away. It's actually in Salesforce Park.
In Salesforce. Oh, it's on top of the building. That's right.
Exactly.
Yes, I heard about this.
I've got to think this has got to be the most doomed business plan of 2023 between Salesforce not forcing people to return to the office, conferences being way down, and NFTs being kind of in the shitter. I would not be betting on show. That's the name of the restaurant.
This is a private members lounge and restaurant. It cost as much as $300,000. Well, how could a restaurant be NFT based? I mean, that's just like a fancy membership card, right? Like it's a fancy way to sell someone a membership card. Show Club is a members-only NFT-based hospitality club providing exclusive access to immersive experiences and services around its flagship restaurant, Show, SHO. Did you ever go there? Did you ever get invited there?
I'm not even sure.
Did it ever open?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's open.
$300,000 a pop for its top tier membership fee. For us, said the founder, it's not about building a Web3 NFT community. It's about building a community, period, and the value we place on creating and serving the communities that we operate in. Is it the Fire Festival atop the Salesforce building? Is that what it is? Did you get a cheese sandwich at least for your $300,000?
I mean, I would hope the sushi would be good. I think it's izakaya style actually.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Well, there was a 2019 New Yorker article about the floating utopia of Salesforce Park. Have you been up there at least? It's 5 acres on top of the building.
Oh, the park is wonderful. It's got like trees from every kind of Mediterranean climate around the world.
Wow.
Kind of like the same climate as California, but from Australia, from South Africa. It's it's an arboreal, fantasy. And people love to walk around there. I don't think they love to pay $300,000 for an NFT.
Let me see. Here it is. The Show Club restaurant experience, iconic location, heart of San Francisco. All this is drawings so far. It was pretty, though. Looks pretty. Ooh, nice. Let me see. Let me apply. Wonder how much. They're not going to tell me. I just have to give them my name and address, and they'll be.
If you have to ask,
yes.
Leo, if you have to ask, you can't afford it.
But I want private mezzanine dining. These are all renders, right? This. Did it ever open?
I will say the last time I was in Salesforce Park, which was not long ago, there was no sign that it was open.
Yeah. Powering this community is an entirely unique application of digital tech and Web3 technologies in the culinary arts. That doesn't sound too good to eat, to be honest with you. I don't want Web3 in my sushi. All right, let's take a little break. More to come with our esteemed panel, the wonderful Jill Duffy. Not Judy Duffy, not Jilly Duffy, just Jill. Did they ever call you Jilly?
Yeah,
No?
sometimes. Sometimes people get confused by I put my middle initial in all my online handles.
You got the D.
Duffy.
Jill E. Duffy. Jill E.
Yeah.
Duffy. PC Magazine. Going great. And the new book, The Everything Guide to Remote Work. All the tools and technologies in there. Everything you need to know.
Everything.
Owen Thomas, who's looking for work, if you want to hire him. Are you actively looking, or?
I'm having conversations. Is that what
You're
folks
in
say?
the same position as all those Twitter employees who got the 3 months severance. 3 months should be enough time to find a job, right?
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not a product manager or
gosh, that would be hard to find that job.
They laid off the entire communications team reportedly.
This is the fun thing. Every story now about Twitter ends with, we attempted to contact Twitter to get a response, but they've laid off their communications team. Honestly, I think newspapers like writing that. Like, they just enjoy that.
The old joke about Apple is that, they had a huge communications team and you would never get an answer anyway.
Right.
So
doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a way to reach you if somebody wants to employ you as a fabulous writer? Because you are.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, please. Owen@didtherotty.com. You can DM me on Twitter @OwenThomas. I suppose I really should be on Mastodon, right? For
your colleague Megan Maroney, our good friend, tweeted. She said, "I'm available." It kills me when you have what was a great product, Protocol, with very, very good people who all moved over to work there. Didn't Yanko Rutgers move over there too?
Yes, I think he was at I want to say Variety before
yeah, he
Protocol.
he was GigaOM, and then he did a great job at Variety, out of work. I mean, so many talented people. It just breaks my heart. Farewell from Protocol. So, and Ditherati, which is DITHERATI.com, is Owen's moribund blog, but it's coming. I think it's coming back to life. I hear
blogs are retro.
Blogs are back, baby.
Blogs are back.
Everybody's talking about, well, if we don't have Twitter, how do we communicate? Have a freaking blog, for crying out loud. What's wrong with that? And I like what you're doing. You do little short. This is like a true blog, or it used to be. Little short clips and links and stuff. It's a link blog.
It actually started, I want to say, in '97, which was before the term weblog was invented. So
right.
Take that for what you will.
There you go. I want to see Owen start this up again. Of course, I'm not the one to talk. I haven't posted my blog in months either. I know how it is. And Nicholas De Leon, who has to file, he's got to write because he has a job at Consumer Reports as the senior electronics reporter. So no resting for you. Get that cubicle. Do you still have the cubicle in Yonkers, or is that gone?
No, they took it from me.
Damn.
They took it from us. I liked the cubicle itself. It was glass, but I had a door. I could close it. I could concentrate.
Nice.
So it was actually very nice. But that is no longer. I had to send him the key. I sent him the key to the facilities guy over the summer.
Oh.
So bon voyage, I guess.
Bon voyage. Oh, cubicle, we hardly knew ye. Our show today brought to you by something we all know and love. I think this is the longest running sponsor on our shows, audible.com. Early on, people said, do you really want to promote audiobooks, people will listen to them and not listen to your shows. I said, yes. I said, if that's what you want to do, you do it, because Audible is the best way to enjoy audio entertainment all in one app. I've been an Audible member since the year 2000, when I had a long commute from here to San Francisco every day, sometimes as much as 2 or 3 hours a day in the car, sometimes even longer. And I was going nuts, and I found Audible, and it saved my life. I had the Diamond Rio. I used to listen on and Audible had its own little thing at first, and then I listened on the Diamond Rio. Of course, now it's easy. You kids today, you don't know. You get an Audible app on your iPhone or your Android, and you've got a whole world of audio entertainment waiting for you. You don't ride in an elevator to listen to the music, right? You don't choose an airline because it's got the best movies. So when it comes to audio entertainment, it makes sense to choose Audible because they've got the best. The home for stories told by the biggest stars, Ethan Hawke, Kerry Washington, Kevin Hart. Lisa and I have been listening. We've listened to all of Kevin Hart's audiobooks. Audible is home to epic adventures, chilling mysteries, can't miss comedies. When The Peripheral came to Amazon Prime, I said, wait a minute. Yeah, it was in my library. And that's what I love about Audible is I can listen to audiobooks before they become major motion pictures or big time TV shows, and see the pictures in my mind. That's kind of what the best thing is about Audible. Go to audible.com/twit, or you can text twit to 500-500. Just now, I have any of you ever listened to Ian Banks's sci-fi? I have not. His Culture series, I found out, is a major influence on one Elon Musk. So I thought, oh, I've got to listen to this. In fact, those crazy names he gives the drone ships where they land the rockets, those all come from Ian Banks novels. So I am now embarked upon a long, well, we'll see. We'll see how long it is, how good it is. Long journey with Ian. I think they're still recording them because they're not all there yet. That's one of the things Audible does that's fantastic. Audible's Frontiers program is recording classic sci-fi that never got turned into audiobooks, so you can listen back to some great stuff. Oh, new Stephen King. Got to put that on the list, right? Whenever there's a new Stephen King. Paul Thurrott and I were talking about 11/22/63, about one man's attempt to go back in time and stop the Kennedy assassination. Paul just re-listened to it. Another thing Audible does that's great is they do, what do they call it? Full cast. So if you're a Neil Gaiman fan, for instance, Audible is heaven for Neil Gaiman fans, but they also have done an incredible dramatization of The Sandman, and a full cast with some of the best actors in the business, including Neil himself. The Sandman is amazing, and you're just going to love it. If you go to audible.com/twit, you can pick your first audiobook, and that might be a good one. But one of the nice things that they do is they let you sample before you buy, so I recommend you do that. They have an incredible selection of audiobooks in every genre: bestsellers, new releases, mysteries, thrillers, motivation, wellness, business. As an Audible member, you could choose one title a month to keep. That includes all the latest bestsellers and new releases. And this is something relatively new, and I really like this. You also get full access to a growing selection of audiobooks that are included in your membership. You get podcasts. You can download or stream their included titles all you want. Steve Gibson told me about the Silver Ships series. Great audiobooks. I listened to the first one, and then I noticed most of the rest are part of my account. I get them just for free, listening anytime I want. That's awesome. Audible, no matter where you are, washing dishes, walking the dog, driving to and from work, whatever you're doing, you can let your imagination run wild. I swear, if you can watch The Peripheral or you can listen to the audiobook, and it comes to life in your head. And you can listen about the lives of celebrities, journey to your best self, check out the spider web of true crimes. I love mysteries on Audible. Discover new worlds, old worlds, and how to make a better world. It's all on Audible. Let Audible help you discover new ways to laugh, be inspired, or be entertained. I hope I've sold you on it. If you're not a member, most of you probably are by now, but if you're not a member, you could try it free for 30 days by going to audible.com/twit or text TWIT to 500-500. That's a good thing to do on your phone because they'll just send you a link to the app. You can download it right away. Audible.com/twit or text TWIT to 500-500 and you get it free for 30 days. That's a lot of listening. Audible.com/twit. Highly, highly recommended. Speaking of Amazon, it just came out that, who would have thought it, the Amazon Echo is a colossal failure. On pace, according to Ars Technica, to lose $10 billion this year. In their layoffs, Amazon laid off as much as half of the Amazon, I'm going to call it Echo team, but you know it's the A word, Alexa team. This is a report from Business Insider, which says even though Echo's been around for 10 years and has been kind of the trailblazer as a voice assistant, copied by Apple, copied by Google and Samsung, it never created an ongoing revenue stream. Business Insider says the division lost $3 billion in just the first quarter of this year, with the majority of the losses blamed on Echo. That's the worldwide digital group, so it includes Amazon Prime. But Echo has really been the money loser. Double the losses of any division. The hardware team on pace to lose $10 billion. How do you lose money on Echo? Well, one, the devices are sold basically at cost. Echo is among the best-selling Amazon items, but most of the devices are sold at cost. The internal document seen by Business Insider described the business model by saying, quote, "We want to make money when people use our devices, not when they buy our devices." But the problem is, well, you tell me, how do you use your Amazon Echo if you have one? Set a timer, play some music. That's it, right?
I have owned them to test them, and I have never in my life had one that I've just kept in my home.
You don't even have
activated. One. Because why would you want a device that is listening to you at all times in your home? I mean, there's two fundamental things. One is listening to you all the time.
Well, so is your phone, Jill. Let's face it, right? You're carrying a device like that in your pocket.
I mean, you have to trust that the microphone is not active at all times, right? Like, I don't have my device set to automatically hear me if I say a trigger word or lift it up. I have that all turned off. But the other fundamental problem with the Amazon devices is, what have they done differently in 10 years?
Right.
You know, when they first came out, I think they did not meet consumers' expectations of what they could do. People thought they could talk to them naturally and have information come back to them. That is sorely not the case. Anybody who actually has one of these devices knows you get trained over time to know what you can and cannot say to it, how to phrase it, in what order, et cetera, et cetera. And that has really fundamentally not changed in the 10 years since it's been around. So I think if you were to give this device to a new person who had never used it before and said, you just get to talk to it and it will give you answers, do things for you, they would immediately do 5 things that just don't work at all. It's not an impressive device. It's just not.
Earlier today, I asked it to open the pod bay doors. It actually responds and says, I'm not Dave and I don't have any pod bay doors. I'm just a device.
And so maybe that made you giggle, but it didn't open your pod bay doors.
Didn't do anything. I'm the poster boy for these things. In every room of the house, I have an Echo. I have a Google Assistant, a show, one of the Google screens. I have a Siri. I even, in my kitchen, have Sonos, which listens to me. And frequently when we're watching TV, these devices wake up and go, what? No? Okay. And go back to sleep. It's like your house is inhabited by nice little creatures that really aren't very helpful, but they're there. Do you, do you have one of these, any of these, Owen?
I have an Echo Flex, which I think is the smallest one, which I think I literally got for free. It was like, hey, we'll sell you an Echo Flex in this order for $0.
Yeah.
Or
99
cents.
Why not? Okay.
Like that.
Sure.
And I put it in my garage where I had a garage gym during the pandemic, and I used it to play music while I worked out, so I didn't have to have
that's nice, right?
something in my ear. Yeah, and that and then I occasionally tried to use it as like an in-house intercom, and my husband hated it.
So it annoys people so much when you do that. Yeah,
totally. So that was off. I remember writing about this when it first came out and being fascinated by the idea of, essentially an audio app store. And I think that was the ambition Amazon had, and it just never realized it. As Jill pointed out, the quality wasn't there. The understanding, the natural language understanding wasn't there. And so they never really, created that business model. Like Apple makes 30% off of App Store transactions, and that helps, kind of fuel the profitability of the iPhone business. Amazon, doesn't make money when they sell hardware by and large, and they don't have the App Store that kind of buffers that. So I can see it, just kind of spiraling out of control in terms of losses.
They originally thought this would be a device in the house that people would use to buy stuff from Amazon. But apparently nobody does that. I do it from time to time, but I guess I'm their like perfect client.
Well, they saw with Amazon Prime that if you're a Prime subscriber, the lift that Amazon gets from increased purchasing behavior, more than makes up for the cost of the fast shipping.
That's true. That's true, right? Right? And by the way, Amazon Prime is now over $170 or something.
Yeah,
plus they made a lot less expensive. But I pay for it, and you're right that because I pay for it, I immediately go to the Amazon site. When I like I'm in the bathroom, I run out of shaving cream, which I don't use, but I'm using it as an example. If I run, I would say, Echo, buy some shaving cream. And then it will say, well, last time you bought this kind of shaving cream, you want to buy that? And I'll say, yes. They say, what's your order number? Or what's your magic number? I have a pin. I say that. And then the shaving cream comes the next day. Who wouldn't want that? Apparently nobody. Nobody wants people. That. Not enough people want that. Come on, Nicholas, you must use the Echo.
Yes, I do. I have.
Finally.
I have a Sonos one. I just bought an Echo Dot on the Black Friday sale. I use them for, and I think this is the issue actually, is like I use them for very simple things. What's the weather?
You're not making them any money. You're just costing
play
them
a
money.
podcast. Yeah, there's no way.
It's great for Audible. I actually say read to me, and it will pick up my current book wherever I left it.
To Owen's point, I feel like in 2016 when I was at Vice Motherboard, we randomly did a story on cool Amazon digital assistant skills you could use or whatever, something to that effect.
Right.
And the story did very well, which was very surprising to us because Motherboard was not Motherboard was tech is bad. That was basically the Motherboard idea. Right. And the story about the cool things you can do with
Motherboard's still in business. Protocol is not. So I think you chose the right path. I'm sorry, Owen.
Be that as it, but I think that goes to the idea.
Don't cry. I'm sorry. That was mean. I'm sorry, Owen.
That was mean, Leo. But we were just kind of surprised that this site is not really about the cool things you can do with
it's
your
not.
tech.
That's more of a Gizmodo or a Verge.
Yeah.
That's a Verge story. Yeah.
Yeah, or someone else, whatever. That's fine. But we did it and it did well, and so I was like, okay. That was 2016, so that's a few years ago. Maybe back then people were more like, "Oh, this is kind of a neat new tech."
No,
this will,
I know because I read that article. I read every article. Once you have one, you're desperate to find something it can do that's useful. So
that could be it too.
You read all the articles, hoping there's some magic command.
Yeah.
Instead, you're just doing timers, music. There's not much people do with
it, which is fine.
Sounds.
Yeah, sounds.
Play podcasts.
I don't do the skills. Do you? I mean, I remember they were pushing the skills.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't use
play
any
Jeopardy.
today.
Don't use any of that. Nope. I think this has really been a flop, and I have to think it's not just Amazon. Well, we don't know, but I bet Google's having the same problem. What's Google getting out of this except listening to Jill?
Didn't Microsoft basically kill off its Cortana?
They did. They had one. They made one with Harman Kardon called Cortana. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that was, in fact, I bought that too because I wanted everyone to listen to me. I live in front of a microphone. What am I gonna? What are they gonna hear that they don't? Everybody else isn't hearing. But the Cortana, they now have repurposed it so it just kind of it stopped working as a Cortana device, and it's a Bluetooth speaker now. It's a very pricey Bluetooth speaker.
For Microsoft, Amazon, and Alphabet, they don't need that money though.
Yeah,
like that loss in their business is not
Big
really
deal.
hurting them.
Right.
I think there was definitely some early speculation that natural language processing was going to have a big value payout, and it just I don't think it has. But that's not to say it's not valuable for the business at large. So for example, Microsoft can use a lot of the information it's learned and acquired in its natural language processing systems and use that for its accessibility features, right? So it's not like they would scrap it entirely. There's still useful things that they can take from that end of the business and put into other sides of the business. With Amazon, I'm not sure how they could leverage it in a different way, but I'm sure they have ideas about how they could do that.
Don't you feel like they're trapped though? They can't just turn it off. I mean, Microsoft turned it off soon enough that it didn't hurt anybody, but Amazon, Google, Apple, Samsung.
It's also interesting.
They can't turn those off.
They're kind of expanding it. Like the Echo Dot that I just purchased can also double as an Eero Wi-Fi beacon. So
Yeah.
I haven't set it up yet.
That's
but I
right.
did buy the Eero as well.
That's
during
right.
Black
It can
Friday,
be
so.
a beacon now. Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
that's useful beyond
Yeah.
just timers and whatever. And also as an aside, these devices may not be transformative to Google's business or whatever, but they're kind of neat and useful. I can ask the weather. That I couldn't do that 10 years ago. I could set multiple timers. That's kind of cool. I know my father has these devices all mixed matched all throughout his house, and he just kind of gets a kick out of like turning off the lights and stuff. Is that so bad?
I do that
don't know,
too. Doesn't make Amazon any money.
No, it doesn't make it Amazon money, which is, I suppose, the bigger
That's
problem,
the problem
for Amazon.
because it costs them, right? They got to have servers, they got to
Yeah.
have software, they got to have people maintain it. It costs them. $10 billion a year, apparently. I'll tell you one place Amazon's Echo is in space, aboard the Artemis Orion capsule. This is Callisto, Orion's onboard technology demonstration. Now, there's no astronauts in Orion. They said they thought astronauts would like having Echo in space. I asked Rod Pyle, our space guy, is this just basically an ad for Amazon? And he said, no, actually, if you're in a spacesuit doing an EVA, being able to talk to the system and say, open the pod bay doors, please, would be useful if it does. As long as it does. If it doesn't, not good. Callisto involves both an iPad and Amazon's Echo, and for some reason Cisco's WebEx. There is nobody up there. They obviously don't have to call back to the home offices in Seattle. They have the whole database up there in space. But the only good thing about this is, if you wish, you can actually send a message to Callisto before they get home, which they're going to be home in a couple of days. You can be part of the Artemis 1 mission by sending a personal message for free, and it will show it on the screen.
As if the trolls can't already get you in enough places.
Well,
Could you imagine going to space and getting nasty messages in space?
No, really. What about Hunter Biden's laptop, huh? What about it? No, in fact, they're very careful to say, upon submission, your message will be reviewed and selected for display at the sole discretion of Lockheed Martin. Messages with derogatory, defamatory, racist, sexist, or otherwise inappropriate content will be automatically rejected. Messages that include any copyrighted materials or endorse any person's products, brands, etc. will also be automatically rejected. I think you have to say something like, I come in peace for all mankind, if you really want to get it up there.
You should send them a message.
Rod did.
Rod
wrote a space haiku that he sent to them. We'll see if he gets it. Go ahead.
That's who I really want moderating the internet is Lockheed Martin.
Lockheed Martin. we brought you the Vietnam War, and now we're going to bring you internet. No, that's unfair. Lockheed Martin has done many wonderful things, including this spacecraft. And it has Amazon's Echo and an iPad in it because something had to talk to the Echo because there's no people there. There's just, what is his name? Mannequin Skywalker, the dummy. And there's a little stuffed Snoopy floating around as well. It's a pretty capsule, though. I wouldn't mind going up there, And if you get lonely, you can always talk to Echo. All right, final break. I got a few more stories. I will find something of interest, I promise. And I will not say anything bad about Protocol again. I'm sorry. I loved Protocol. That's what I was saying. I was saying how much I loved it. How sad I am to lose it. That's all. Ooh, let me show you this. This is cool. This is our sponsor for this segment of the show, a little company called OnLogic. These are the coolest things ever. These are industrial computers made for environments that a normal computer would not be happy in. That's one of the big shifts in computing. Computing at the edge. It's moving away from the computer on your desktop. You're probably no more than a few feet from a personal computer that's changed your life, right? But did you know there's an entire hidden world of computing all around, empowered by these OnLogic computers, bringing smart cities to life, driving sustainable agriculture, revolutionizing the way virtually everything is made. These are in factories everywhere. I hope you don't ever see one, but they're on hospital crash carts. OnLogic's distinctive orange industrial and embedded computers are so amazing because they're custom built to the environment you want to be in, with hardware that you need, no more, no less. OnLogic is the first choice in industrial computing for innovators around the world who need computing power that can survive and thrive where traditional hardware is going to fail. OnLogic designs and creates these beautiful orange boxes that custom computing solutions that fit in the palm of your hand while powering everything from advanced robotics and AI to manufacturing automation, digital media solutions, smart agriculture technologies. What's cool about these is they're passively cooled. That's why you got the fins. They're ventless, fanless. They protect internal components from dust, airborne contaminants. You've got an entirely solid-state device, no moving parts, which means they're impervious to shock and vibration. There's designs for all kinds of needs, including extreme temperatures, radio interference. This one's cool because it has 6 ports for Wi-Fi antennas. So you add as many as you want. It's pretty incredible. The team at OnLogic designs these to your specs, to your needs. They really care about creating right-fit solutions tailored specifically to solve your unique technology challenges. OnLogic partners with leading software companies, AWS for one, to enable rapid evaluation and deployment of edge computing solutions. For example, OnLogic's line of AWS IoT Greengrass compatible computers. Vetted and approved by AWS, so you've got the peace of mind it's going to work right out of the box with your Greengrass application. If you need a computing solution that can be easily configured to your particular needs, supported by industry experts who are just a phone call, website chat, or email away and delivered to you quickly, the team at OnLogic is ready to help. Of course, I know a lot of you are do-it-yourselfers. You can go to the website. OnLogic's easy-to-use website gives you the power to configure and order your next industrial computing device quickly and easily right online. All in-stock online orders are custom-built to your specification, thoroughly tested, shipped in as little as 5 days. So you're less than a week away from your OnLogic. When you need a custom-configured industrial computer, edge server, panel PC delivered quickly, the first place to go, onlogic.com/twit. Learn more about OnLogic's 30-day risk-free hardware trial. Connect with their experts. Let them help you and design it or design it yourself at onlogic.com/twit. ONLOGIC, onlogic.com/twit. The cool factor is very high on these puppies. These are so cool. onlogic.com/twit. We thank them so much for supporting This Week in Tech. You support us by using that address so they know you saw it here. That's important to us. OnLogic.com/twit. We had a great week this week on TWiT, and we made a little miniature movie for you to enjoy. Learn all about it. Watch. Real quick.
This is another fine time here in Club TWiT, as we're going to sit down with my man, Mr. Jonathan Bennett, to have a bit of a good old-fashioned AMA with you, our Club TWiT members. The next question comes from Mashed Potato. This made me laugh. What shampoo and hair care products does Jonathan recommend?
Man, whatever works for you. I don't care what shampoo you use.
Previously on TWiT. All about Android.
I actually go hands-on with the OnePlus Nord N300 5G. This is a very affordable device, and you can kind of see, like, design-wise, it really takes some inspiration from the iPhone 14.
iOS Today.
I am joined by a special guest to talk to you about tips and tricks for the Apple TV. Stay tuned.
Windows Weekly.
Through some combination of hardware improvements on Qualcomm's side, and more important, I think the platform improvements that Microsoft has done, they have made Windows more viable on Macs. Windows on ARM is better. Well, that means that Windows can be better on a Mac, and it's better than it is on a Qualcomm PC.
Yeah, that's not good.
Crazy.
That's not
It's
good.
a weird problem.
TWiT. Technology isn't always pretty, but we are.
Well, I don't know about that. Thank you, Jim Cutler, the great Jim Cutler, who is the voice of our promos. Thanks to our promo department, to Victor Bognot, etc., and Anthony Nielsen for those wonderful promos. A couple more stories before we wrap things up with our wonderful panel. Owen Thomas from ditherati.com, formerly of protocol.com. Jill Duffy from PCMag.com, and from Consumer Reports, their senior technology reporter, Mr. Nicholas De Leon. Black Friday was day before yesterday. Cyber Monday's tomorrow. Doesn't seem like people really care about those anymore, right?
I mean, we write a million stories about that stuff, and the stories do pretty well. So I don't know. I love a good deal. Like I said, I just bought an Echo Dot about 50% off. I bought the Eero 6E, Eero Pro 6E, whatever percentage off that was. I bought a bunch of Steam. I still get excited about, like, oh, this thing that used to be $100 a month ago, now it's 60. Like, I don't know. And so I don't know how big. I think one of the issues is that, like, this coverage is now wall to wall. I feel like you can go to, like, variety.com or, like, the Hollywood Reporter and read about Amazon's Cyber Monday deals. That doesn't make sense. If Gizmodo wants to do it, if Consumer Reports wants to do it, okay, that at least makes sense. But it's so pervasive now. Yeah, exactly. Folks who cover this stuff, like, I don't need Sports Illustrated telling me about, like, the best Amazon, and that's what it feels like it's becoming over the years. I've been doing this, Lord knows, many years now. So I've kind of seen, now everyone does it. So I think there's kind of like an exhaustion there. But as far like on the low level tactical, I don't know. I feel like folks still like getting a deal on a Kindle or whatever the case may be.
So you've got your Cyber Monday story then, probably at consumerreports.org.
We've got a bunch. Yeah.
I know, Jill, you've got yours at PC Mag. Actually, it's Jade Chung Lee wrote this one, the best Cyber Monday deals of 2022. The only place it doesn't have it is Protocol. Oh God, I did it again. I'm so.
And really, I don't think we would have had.
You were a news organization.
Not a straight up story. Actually, the story I might have written was how Black Friday and Cyber Monday have blurred into one kind of online offline mega sale that probably starts like November 1st.
Yeah, I think it's a month now.
Yeah, for sure.
Remember, Cyber Monday as a phenomenon existed because people were on dial-up modems at home.
Yep.
And then they would go back to work when they had high-speed connections on Monday and do their shopping. And I mean, that's just ridiculous in 2022. Like, that's not the behavior.
So I spend a lot of time outside of the United States, and I've lived in a couple of countries outside the United States, and it just tickles me with so much delight in November when all the shops have Black Week sale, Black Friday sale.
Because they don't have Thanksgiving. There's
no Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
No, but I would go to the mall in Romania, and they're like, it's Black Month sale. And it was just like, kind of joyous and fun. It would start on a random day. It wasn't necessarily on a Friday. And I love it. I love it.
Black Friday was somewhat of a success. We already have metrics. Adobe and others do report on how it went. I think it's pretty clear now that online shopping has, to some degree, replaced in-store shopping. There was a boost in in-store traffic. Actually, there was a surge last year in 2020. People were so happy to get out of the house. But high gasoline and grocery prices and inflation have weighed on households. The report is from, at least this is from Retail Next. There's several reporters. Store traffic up 7% on Black Friday compared with 2021. In-store sales up 0.1%. A lot of looky-loos going in there. I hope people aren't doing this. They're going into stores to choose what they're going to buy and then go back home and buy it online. I hope they're not doing that, but that kind of implies that they might be. MasterCard, which kind of monitors everything, says Black Friday sales were up 12% over last year, but that's also online as well as in store. And is not adjusted for inflation. So it might be, with taking inflation into account, only a few percent more. It wasn't this giant, we're going to get out of the red and into the black holiday that it used to be. That's why it was called Black Friday, right? It was a chance for retailers to make, all the money, that get out of the money losing column and get into the money plus column. Customer Sentiment Index from the University of Michigan. By the way, congratulations, University of Michigan. Fell 5.2% compared with October, down 16% compared with November 2021. So people are less bullish than they were last year, but a little more bullish than they were last month. Walmart and Target said shoppers are spending less on discretionary items. Again, that chill in the economy. People are buying things they have to buy, but not things they don't have to buy. Macy's, Kohl's, and Target said sales slowed in October and early November. And people think that it's possible shoppers are delaying their holiday purchases until closer to Christmas. In other words, bottom line, a lukewarm Black Friday.
I feel like we also don't see a lot of the crazy Black Friday stuff that we saw maybe 10,
the fist
15
fights,
years ago. The fights and all that stuff. The retailers were making folks, go to work during Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah. Like that was kind of ridiculous.
3 a.m. openings, all that stuff's gone.
I went to a local Macy's on Black Friday itself to buy some dress socks, and it didn't seem any crazier than any other Friday or Saturday. The traffic seemed about the same. It just felt like a normal day. So I assume that's a consequence of just so much shopping going online. But I wanted to see the calamity, and I didn't really see it.
There is a short story there. That's the perfect first sentence. On Black Friday, Nicholas De Leon went shopping to buy some dress socks. I don't know where it's going to go from there, but there's something there. There's a whole story there. Not athletic socks, dress socks.
They were dress socks.
Okay.
It's very George Costanza sounding, yeah. Or maybe Frank Costanza, to be more specific.
Well, hey, Festivus is just around the corner. Let's not forget. Yeah. And we've got our poll ready to go and all our grievances. Final story. You like this? Tickled you, Jill Duffy. French man wins right not to be fun at work.
Great headline. Great headline.
That's the Washington Post.
No, when you read the story, it's more about, having to go on these weekend retreat getaway things where there's excessive drinking and people sleeping with one another. Legitimate that he doesn't want to participate in this. But I love the headline, and I love the idea of bringing up this topic that not everybody wants to have fun at work.
Yes. And
lots of us want to do our job, get paid for what we are contractually, contractually obligated to do, and go home and have the rest of our lives to live. We want to enjoy our leisure time. I think that is such an important thing for people to learn at an early age before they get indoctrinated into this idea that you have to work so hard, overtime. You have to give your all. You have to be at work all the time. You should make friends with people at work. Hey, enjoy the free dinner we give you at work.
Okay.
Learn early on that you can set those boundaries and you do not have to participate in those things if you don't want to. Something I talk about in my book for remote companies is that if you're going to make it fun, make it optional. Everything that you're going to put out there for employees to socialize, get to know one another, it has to be opt-in, not opt-out.
Very good.
You
I
can't
like that.
make people feel pressured to be a part of something that is optional. It's so important to talk about this.
The man referred to by court documents as Mr. T, pity the fool who doesn't want to have fun at my company, was fired from Cubic Partners in a Paris-based consulting firm in 2015. This has been wending its way through Parisian courts for 7 years. He refused to take part in seminars and weekend social events that his lawyers argued included excessive alcoholism and promiscuity. Mr. T argued that the fun culture in the company involved, quote, humiliating and intrusive practices, including, you know what? This guy should get compensation. Mock sexual acts, crude nicknames, and obliging him to share his bed with another employee during work functions. In its judgment this month, the highest court in France, the Court of Cassation, ruled the man was entitled to freedom of expression, and refusing to participate in social activities was a fundamental freedom under labor and human rights laws and not grounds for his dismissal.
Well, I mean, wasn't that like what was on Succession?
Yes. Bore on the
Go to the
floor.
house.
We're going to play Bore on the floor. Oh my God. You from your mouth to my wife's ears, because she's going to force me on Tuesday is my birthday. And I know she's already saying, I'm sorry. I said, for what? She said, you'll find out. Wow. So I know I will be subjugated to something. I don't know. Maybe bake cake on the floor. I don't know, but that's okay. It's something you put up with. That's fine when your wife runs the company. You have to do it. The company didn't like Mr. T's brittle and demotivating tone. You're so cranky. Anyway. Thank you, Jill Duffy, and I'm sure we will find this in your book, all about the everything guide to remote work.
The everything guide to remote work. There is an ebook available if you want to get it today, right now. There's no audio book, but it's not that kind of a book. It's the kind of book you can pick up, say, I'm having a problem right now. I need to fix whatever it is in my remote work life. You can flip to the chapter, get some good advice.
Very nice. Very nice. Just came out this year. So nice to see you. We haven't seen you in a while. I'm glad to get you back on, and hope
thank
you will come
you for
back
having
soon.
me.
Everybody loves your dial phone on your bookshelf behind you that actually used to work.
It does work. No, it does work. I had to unplug it because it was ringing all the time, but it is a functioning
How do you
phone.
get you go and the phone company works with that?
Oh, I don't dial out.
Oh, okay.
No, it does work. I did test it though. I called my mobile phone from the landline phone to make sure that it did work, and it works. Yeah.
I'm surprised because that click system is so obsolete. I'm amazed.
Oh,
that
I'm not in the U.S. I don't know. I assume it would work in the U.S. I'm not in the U.S. right now.
Oh, you're not in the U.S.
No,
I had no idea.
Not today. I'm not.
Oh, where can I ask? Is it secret?
No, it's not secret. I'm in Guatemala right now.
I had no idea. How wonderful.
Yeah.
And is it the custom in Guatemala to arrange your books on the shelf by color?
I have no idea.
Do you have somebody who comes in and does that for you?
It looks nice though, doesn't it?
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. That's fabulous. Yeah. So that's interesting. So that kind of dialing works in Guatemala. I
assume it would work in the U.S.
I don't think so. I really don't. But I don't know. Now I know why you do remote work, so you can be in Guatemala.
I move around all the time. I'm technically still based in Virginia, but I'm spending a lot of time in Guatemala lately.
Is that because of your husband's work, or is he a diplomat?
I don't want to talk about my partner.
He's a spy. That's it. We know. Okay, never mind. Is he going to overthrow the government on behalf of the United Fruit Company?
I think we already did that in the 80s. No?
Okay, just checking. Just making sure. Anyway, I love having you on, Jill. I had no idea you were in Guatemala. That's wonderful.
I'm always somewhere interesting.
That's very cool. Yeah, that's wonderful. Poco in our chat room says, I have a dial phone and it works. So I guess these still work. I thought for sure they were, deprecated by now in the phone system. Because the way they work, it's clicks. And like the 0 is like a bunch of clicks. And then the 1 is one click. And the phone system hears that and switches based on that. I thought those were replaced by dial tones years ago. Wow. I've learned something today. Thank you, Jill Duffy. Thank you also, Owen Thomas. So great to see you. Ditherati.com. Look for his work. He's already working freelance. I'm just teasing him. He's doing great. And you're still tweeting at Owen Thomas, yes?
I'm still tweeting for now.
You're tweeting or tooting?
Tooting my own horn on Twitter. It's tweeting.
Jill is tooting, and are you tweeting or just tooting?
I'm taking a break from the tweeting.
Yeah, I'm tooting myself. I like tooting, and I followed you on the Tooterverse. So I look forward to your toots. Also, Nicholas De Leon, Consumer Reports. So good to see you. Thank you, Nicholas. I hope you had a great holiday, and I hope
thanks, Leo.
I hope you have a wonderful December. We'll see you real soon.
Likewise.
Thanks for being here. We do TWiT every Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2200 UTC. What time is it in Guatemala right now?
What are we, an hour off of California?
Is it just an hour? So it's not bad.
You know what time it is? It's doggy dinner time.
Doggy dinner time!
If there's been any grumblings picked up on my microphone.
No, I didn't hear anything. But at one point I saw you lean over and I thought, somebody's over there. I don't know what, but she's patting somebody. Thank you, all three of you. Join us for TWiT every Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2200 UTC. You can watch live all the things we do live at live.twit.tv. Chat live with us at irc.twit.tv or in our Discord if you are a Club TWiT member. After the fact, we put on-demand versions of the show available at twit.tv. / This Week in Tech, I think. Anyway, just go to twit.tv. You'll find it pretty quickly. You can also go to your favorite podcast client and subscribe. That might be the easiest thing to do. And that way you'll get it automatically the minute it's available, just in time for your Monday morning commute from the bedroom to the kitchen or wherever you might be going. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time. Another TWiT is in the can. Bye-bye.